Okay, we are live. You can go ahead and start your meeting.
Very good, thank you. Good evening. My name is Greg Young. I'm the chair of the Northborough Conservation Commission. I would like to call the June 8th, 2026 meeting to order at 6 p.m. This meeting is being conducted remotely in accordance with the provisions of the Massachusetts Open Meeting Law. Is being streamed live and recorded through the Northborough Media Connection. Because we are remote, all votes will be taken this evening by roll call. Before I begin, I will confirm the presence of the commission members and staff members participating remotely. As I call your name, please state your name and confirm that you can hear and be heard. Dan Clark.
Here.
Todd Helwig.
Here.
John Johnston.
Present.
Sadie Stone. No Sadie. Very good. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Glenda Williamson.
Here.
Dana Volk.
I'm here.
Thank you, Dana. Some ground rules. The chair will invite each speaker or applicant on the agenda by name to make a presentation and speak to their application. Participants will provide their full name and hold until their name is called. Each speaker will be asked to mute their phone or computer when not speaking and to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. Those responding will be asked to wait until the floor is yielded to them. Speakers who wish to respond to the comments of others do so through the chair, taking care to identify themselves. For items of public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. By phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Please note that part of your phone number will be visible to those viewing the meeting. By Zoom, click Raise Hand on the bottom of your screen and wait to be recognized. The chair will ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once the chair has a list of all public commenters, the chair will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. A reminder that this meeting is being recorded and will be available for viewing via the NCAT YouTube channel tab on the right side of the town's website. Okay, Dan, you're on.
All right. The meeting will include the following hearings pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Northborough Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and/or the Northborough Stormwater Management Land Disturbance Bylaw. Notice of intent application for 493 Church Street, map 40, parcel 4, filed by Williams and Sprague's LLC on behalf of the owner, Kathleen Mick, for proposed construction of an approximately 455 square foot accessory dwelling unit and associated appurtenances within the outer riverfront area.
That's it.
That's it.
Very good. I told you it was short, sweet.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Agenda minutes. Glenda, I don't think we spoke earlier today. I don't think we can approve any minutes because we don't have the right match of quorums and so forth. So that's really the April meeting we can't. I'm sorry, the May meeting we can't do because we haven't received the minutes yet. So you're going to chase those down?
You're on mute, Glenda.
Glenda, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, no, we can't, April 13th, because we don't have the quorum of the members that were present.
Right.
We would need,
and the May, we haven't seen the May minutes, right? You got to chase those down from the.
No, I haven't seen those yet. So we're missing Sadie and Justin for the April 13th minutes.
Right.
So they'll have to continue.
Okay. So we'll just kick those down the road, and hopefully we can get the May minutes too, also.
Yep.
It says on the May thing that I was absent, but I was here.
For May.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Tash.
Once we actually see the minutes, we'll know that. So there we go. That's good to know. Okay. Let's jump into the public hearings. We have a continuation for 1 Church Street And we're close to being at the end here, I think, Glenda, right?
Yes.
Who's on from One Church?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. This is Dan Shane with Haley Ward. How are we doing today?
Good, good. Welcome.
Beautiful. So if I may, I'm just going to share my screen here and kind of walk through of kind of where we are and how we've ended up here and all of that as well.
Great.
Beautiful. Can everybody see this?
I see it now.
Perfect. So again, Dan Shane, Haley Ward, here on behalf of the applicant. We were here before you guys before originally, and we've made some adjustments to the plans from the peer review response we received from Tetra Tech in lieu with the Zoning Board of Appeals. Since then, we've actually been able to provide a formal response as well as formal revisions before the commission today. This was continued from our previous meeting because unfortunately we weren't able to actually provide that formal response. So what you'll see here on the plans may look very different. A lot of the things were kind of cleaned up here for more of a cleanliness sake, but I'd be more than happy to kind of get into all the nitty gritty if you guys have any questions, but I'll keep things relatively high level, explain the project again as it's kind of been some time since we've been there, and then explain kind of the major impacts from the Conservation Commission side of things with the plan revisions.
Daniel, can you increase the size just a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. That better?
That's good. Yep, thank you.
Perfect. So here, this is a demo sediment erosion control plan as well as thrown in separately. But ultimately where I was going with this was kind of the busy plans you guys kind of saw before with all the additional floodplains and hazardous areas as well. You'll kind of see those turn off as we kind of go throughout the project just for cleanliness sake. But they are here to kind of show those environmentally sensitive areas. So moving along here, this is the layout sheet. Nothing really changed here too much. Again, as part of the revisions, they just wanted to see some more pavement markings as well as some more delineation for this crosswalk. Getting into more of the stormwater side of things, they did also want to see some additional piping. I know one of the previous members had brought up that as well with the roof runoff, piping into the system, trying to keep clean runoff clean and not commingling. So we did provide that, excuse me. And some of the outstanding comments from Tetra Tech's peer review letter that we recently received was more in regards to catch basin inlet capacity, as well as some operation and maintenance control language. So my screen's kind of half cut here. I hope it's not for you guys. But this catch basin here, it's a water quality inlet structure. The concern that the peer reviewer had was that the single inlet grate doesn't have enough capacity and would provide some sort of ponding or flooding during severe storm events. I did look into this further. Per the manufacturer, they actually don't like to have a double catch basin grate on top of these structures. It can sometimes resuspend some of the solids themselves. So we'll have to kind of take into consideration that. The only real change that would happen as it kind of continued going through that response would be that this essentially becomes a double catch basin itself, just to allow some more inlet capacity to that. And this drain manhole may turn into a water quality inlet to still provide that TSS removable credit for that. Just full transparency, we've been going through with the Zoning Board of Appeals. A lot of discussion has been talked about traffic here. I don't suspect any major plan revisions coming from that. If there were any, I would suspect the main concern here is this side of West Main Street, which is outside the 200-foot stream buffer area. So you're outside the riverfront area. So I think where we're at right now with the plan that's before you, there really won't be too much, drastic changes from the Conservation Commission side of things. I think, it's pretty well covered. I just think just trying to foresee any possible things that kind of come up. This section here could see some revisions, but I can't speak for the Board of Appeals. That's really all I have for you. I'd be more than happy to go into some more detail, or if you guys would like a better overview of the use of the project again, I'd be more than happy to do that as well. But I'll hand it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you, Daniel. Glenda, where were you on this?
Could you, Dan, just go over the other comments? They wanted some information in the operation and maintenance plan, pet waste management, landscape maintenance, and fertilizer?
Absolutely. So because there's a lot of residential use with this project, the peer reviewer did think that adding some additional language in the operation and maintenance plan may be pertinent, like Glenda had said, for pest waste management, as well as lawn care, lawn maintenance, use of fertilizers and things of that nature. We'd be more than happy to kind of do a more formal response on that. I have already kind of drafted some preliminary language for the operation maintenance plan. Just, the simple things. Pet owners would be responsible for removing their own pet waste. We should have some, trash receptacles for pet waste if it's needed. I think with this case, I try to keep it not necessarily dotting I's and crossing T's, because you don't know who's going to end up moving into these residential units. But the way I kind of worded an operation maintenance plan was more of, if these type of tenants would be present, then these, I guess, operation and maintenance should be followed. As well as, same thing with lawn care, just trying to make sure you're using a sharp blade, cutting it regularly, watering it regularly. And if needed for fertilizers, them to not be stored outside, need to be properly sealed and enclosed, and to utilize a professional landscaper if the need is needed. Things of that nature. I hope, Glenda, that kind of answered your question, but
yeah,
that's kind of where I have so far. I'd be more than happy to provide that revised operation maintenance plan to you guys as well. I just think at this point where we're at, where we still have to do a lot of other, I don't want to say plan revisions, but more revisions to address some other comments throughout the peer review letter. I haven't had a chance to kind of sit down and actually formalize it and send things over yet.
Okay. Anything else, Glenda?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Comments? We've seen this before. So, Glenda, it doesn't sound like we can close this, or is that not true? We could close it with some conditions here.
I think we're able to close.
I mean, a lot of the work has been done from our jurisdictional side. A lot of the other stuff that Daniel's talking about wouldn't be us.
Yeah, and really, it's just a couple minor revisions. If he can determine if he's going to go with the double catch basin or the storm sector, and a little bit on the O&M plan. We already have the fertilizer and snow storage conditions in our Exhibit A conditions. So,
If the ZBA is still yet to decide, do we want to close it? It's really the applicant's call, but I'm happy to close it if they want it closed, but.
Yeah, great question. Honestly, it doesn't really matter to me either way. I don't think closing it, just based on the comments we are hearing from the ZBA, I don't think they would be jurisdictional. So I'm not opposed to closing the hearing itself. But I don't want to say I'm 50-50 on it, because it is nice to kind of close everything together. You never know going into the next meeting how they would feel. And the last thing I'd want to do is have to come back for an amended order of conditions. But if that is the case, I think that's fine as well, because I think it would be minor.
Okay. Any other comments on this one? I mean, we have 21 days to, Glenda, right? The time we say yes until you get the documentation out. So we could have, one option we have is to approve when nothing happens in that 21-day period until Daniel provides the missing data.
true.
Does that work for the rest of the commission, or anybody have any other nodding heads?
That's fine.
Please, John, seem good?
No concerns.
Okay.
I think we move forward.
Then we need a motion to close the hearing on 1 Church Street.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dan. Roll call. Dan Clark.
Yes.
Todd Helwig.
Yes.
Don Johnson.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So now we need a motion to issue an order, order of conditions with, what's the caveat here? That you provide us the missing information around the O&M plan and the drain piece there prior to issuance of the actual order?
I'm not opposed to that.
Then I'll make that motion.
Okay. For a second.
Second.
Seconded by John. Roll call. Dan Clark.
Yes.
Todd Helwig.
Yes.
Don Johnson.
Yes.
I vote yes.
But I have one additional condition. I don't know if we talked about it, we wanted 2 full years of, riverfront area planting and monitoring with the annual report each year for 2 years.
No opposition from me. Put that way, Glenda.
Okay. Add that into the order. Okay, I think we're good, Daniel. Thank you for support. I hope we don't see you back here again.
My ideas, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys very much. Have a great rest of your night.
We hope we see him, but on a different project.
There we go. There we go. He knows.
Thanks,
I appreciate
Dave.
it. Great. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Uh, 17 Green Street, notice of intent and stormwater management. Glenda, I believe they have requested a continuation. Is that true?
Yes, so we really shouldn't have any discussion on this one.
Okay.
They need to they're gonna still have to respond to the peer review comments and provide revised plans.
Okay. We'll postpone till July. Move to the July agenda.
Yeah,
Okay. We need a motion to continue the notice of intent and stormwater management for 17 Green Street.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Dan. Roll call. Dan Clark,
Yes.
Todd Helwig,
Yep.
John Johnson,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So we will move 17 Green Street, continue it to the July meeting. July 13th. July 13th. All right. Next on the agenda, we have 12 Saddle Hill Drive, another continued notice of intent. Let's see, who do we have here for that? Glenn, is that you? Glenn, I think you're muted. You're still muted. You calling us back?
Yes,
He's going to call us again?
I'm calling now. I'm having a problem with the computer.
Okay, I can hear you.
All right, well, then I'll just discuss the project.
Okay, this is 12 Saddle Hill Drive. Continuation.
Yes, sir. I'll start when you're ready.
Yeah, and I think the note that I have here, Glenn, is that there was a plan revision taking place from last month.
There
that's
was, and we sent it over. We put the ADU at a 45-degree angle to the existing house. You have those plans. And it now we removed it out of the lower part of that valley to get it away from the non-detailed floodplain study.
Okay.
We moved the Cultec unit, the infiltrator he had, and we went with a Cultec on the side of the building. I did ask the engineer not to perk and depot for the Cultec behind the structure, as I felt, and it was 3 feet down, 3.5, and we have 5.5 feet down where we put the Cultec. We did respond to DEP with these comments as far as moving it away from the non-detailed floodplain study. Did get a letter as it's under 1057-2. It talks about observation. We went to Mr. Olberg, who's lived there. That's been the family farm.
Mm-hmm.
They've never seen it flood over the access way to his field in the back, which is under contention. That elevation is lower than the structure. It's actually 4 feet, 5 feet lower than the structure that we have by moving it closer to the road. So we're just meeting 34 feet off the cul-de-sac, which the setback is 30 feet.
Glenda, do we have a
So by
copy?
moving it forward,
Do we have the plan?
yes, you do. Oh, yes. Glenda should be able to put it on the screen.
why is it so
Looks like it's
small?
cut off. Yeah.
Huh, I don't know.
Yeah, we sent it last week.
Well, because I have two screens, so it's like confusing.
Okay.
Let me try again.
The revision date, 6/2/26.
I don't know why it's so small.
There it is. Bingo. That's good.
Can you see the full plan?
Yep, whole thing.
All right, because I can't really see it, but okay.
Well, maybe 85% of it. All the important stuff's there.
So in the past, the structure of the ADU was perpendicular or in line with the existing home. It wasn't cocked at 45 towards the road.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what brought us out of that lower plane.
Yeah.
That was DEP's concern because they no longer will accept, without at least a written comment from somebody that's lived there under that 1057-2, that they haven't observed it flood there. It's kind of a very subjective term, but it says or observation. So we just used the same technique in Leicester on Pine Street. We did move the structure out of the non-detailed floodplain study by 4 feet. We had a person that lived there, an old timer forever on this Pine Street. And between the two of them, DEP was, or at least the issuing authority is the way the clause reads, was satisfied that we were well outside of the non-detailed floodplain study. Those studies can go, as you might be aware, 20, 30. We just saw one on Gulf Street, 55,000 for a 55 and over. So we moved the structure out of there.
Yep.
Sent you the letter from the abutter, which is Oberg, again, the family. And that also went to DEP.
Okay.
We infiltrated again, we did the deep holes, and that's what you have.
So that letter is what DEP requested, Glenn, correct?
Yes.
They requested that, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry if you said Glenn or Glenda. I might get confused. Glenn, Glenda, Glenn.
Yeah.
Did you say Glenn or Glenda?
So Glenn,
sorry.
your closest point to the wetlands is 74 feet.
Yes, let me say that this lot was created the house was built in 94. There is an alternative analysis that was performed that you have a part of it. We are over 10%. So DEP said use 1058.5, but if you go over 5 by 10% with both the existing structure and the proposed, then you have to do an alternative analysis. So we showed that there was no other place on this pre-existing river law, to put the structure. As you might see on the left-hand side of the house, we're right adjacent to the property line. So the only place to put an ADU would be as we're looking at it, east of the structure, but also move it forward so that it's not in that lower plane.
Okay, good. Glenda, where are you in this? Any questions on this? Any concerns? Sounds like we have a lot of the info down already here. The DEP has been covered.
Yeah.
Not particularly. Just one thing, Glenn, are you going to leave the Coltech unit where it is?
I recommend, and Glenda and Glenn did speak over this last week, and I had recommended, and I'm not getting that much cooperation from the engineer. We haven't worked with him before. I told him I would recommend that the Coltech unit be moved so there's no post grading where you're seeing now 282 as a post 284, and 282 as a post grade for breakout of the Coltech unit. If the Coltech unit was put on the side of the house, more to not to the back right of the house, but to the front right of the house, the structure ADU, we wouldn't need post grading even in that lower plane. So although we have letters and that it hasn't flowed over the cart road that Mr. Oberg has, which is lower in elevation than this, we've looked at it. We have 1 foot contours with Mass Mapper, and we're well above that cart road. They've never seen it flood over it, but for a safeguard, and because I want to also satisfy DEP that we're well above the lower plane of this valley, my recommendation was originally to pull the cul-de-sac, which we're, again, 5.5 feet below the hole. You see the test pit 1. He did attempt a test pit 2 lower down, which didn't work. because we are getting close to the water table. Generally, within 1.5 feet on the till soil, anything within 1.5 feet of the soil surface, you can have hydric soils. We are 3 feet with number 2 TP, but we're again in the range of 5 feet where we have the test pit. Now, I would have recommended, and I did recommend, to put it a little bit further up the slope so there's no breakout, 284, 282, and that would have been, that's where I was going. And if we'll take a condition that says to move it forward. The client has no quorums over this being moved forward. It was only the engineer, and there's no good reason for it.
Okay. So we're going to see another plan then?
We would like the plan is just going to have that thing moving forward by, the structure itself is, we have 28 feet deep. It's behind the 28. So we were hoping, and we did discuss, Glenda and I did discuss it. There was a recommendation that, I didn't recommend, but it was recommended that there be an order of conditions to move it forward to the side, the front right of the building, and not the rear right of the building. And that would prevent those 2 post grades. If the commission wants this and wants to continue, clearly that's your right, but otherwise we're going to get you a plan, probably directed by the order, to move it forward. That's the only issue that I would have. Okay. I'm not sure if DEP would have any additional issues, but mine is to get out of that lower valley.
Commissioners, what are your thoughts about this?
What is going on? I'm going to stop sharing now, okay? But we have the engineer, Robert Parentes, trying to get on the meeting. I think he needs the meeting ID, but like my texting on Ring Central is not working.
Glenda, if I may, real quick, if he goes onto the agenda on the town website, all the information should be on there.
Yeah, I sent him the agenda. The meeting ID is on there.
Yes, correct.
Oh, shoot. 1 second, please.
The engineer isn't the one that has to deal with DEP. It's me.
Yep.
And that's why I said to move it forward. I don't think he has experience working with the non-detailed floodplain study, which is now just in the last year and a half, been an issue with DEP in wanting a detailed study if you're down near the floodplain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, let me get on my email. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Well, Dan, John, and Todd, what do you think about approving a plan that's going to change? I have some ill-thought feelings about that, but on the other hand, I hate delaying another month.
I'm all for moving up to 284.
I mean, my general stance is I like to approve the final plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It seems like a small thing to kick it for 30 days forward.
Didn't we just do this?
Yes.
On which one, Todd?
We just approve, I mean, we do this with sort of ministerial revisions to plans all the time, as long as it comes in, after the meeting and it's satisfactory to the, the agent, I'm okay with that.
Okay. I suppose we could, if we did, we could amend it if it came back very strangely. It could be more than that.
But from our point, through the chairman, from our point, there would be no other changes that we'd be looking at, but a movement forward. When I say forward, that would be in the southern direction, of course, yes.
Away from the resource area.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess in that case, if it's going to be more protected, then might as well approve it now. It's only going to get better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We have the engineer trying to connect. Can we just give him one more minute, please?
What would be the negative side to moving it to 284? Away from the plane, the downgrade.
I don't think it's any negative side, Glenn, do you?
I just can't
No,
think of
no, no. Nope. If I could, through the chairman, the water table is only going to get deeper down as we move it up. We would move it. It's at 284 existing contours. I would move it to 286 or 286 or 7. And that way we won't need the post grading. That's breakout. The only reason he's down with a post grade at 282, 284 is because of breakout. If you move it forward, any kind of grading would be at the same elevation as the, we wouldn't have it down at that lower part of 282. I'm concerned with going below 282 with any kind of grading because of the term in floodplains and incremental filling of floodplains. And again, we're not. The only thing we have going for us is staying as far as we can. We had one before, again, recently, where we were only 1.5 feet above the non-detailed floodplain study. This is only a couple months ago. And there was a detention structure. I told you, and then DEP still had an argument. So we moved it 4 feet above the extrapolated floodplain study with the letter from the abutter, and DEP had no questions on that.
Okay.
Nor did the issuing authority, because they issued the order, and I even asked the agent, and apparently, possibly she talked to DEP, but she said, no, there's not going to be any issue, and there wasn't any issue. So that's why I'm concerned with being in the lower valley.
So, Glenn,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
can anybody hear me over there?
I can hear you. And who are you?
I am Bob Parenti. I'm the person that drew the plan, did the survey, and witnessed the test holes with the contractor.
Okay.
The reason we put the recharge chamber, and I gave you a detail of the Caltex. Glenda also has an 8.5 by 11 detail of the Caltex. The reason we put it on the side is because the soil is better. I would rather not have it in the front. The soil is not great. And when I put it on the side, I'm able to bleed the water out the side. So I have it in the best location. And if somebody else wants to stamp the plan, that's great. But why would I put a recharge chamber in the front of an ADU and drain water to the front of the house, to the front of the building? That makes so I'm really not putting a lot of fill over this thing. I'm just putting enough fill to cover the gutter from the back of the house. So the grades in that area on the side of that unit have to be those grades, no matter, unless you're doing a walkout on that side of the building, which we're not doing. So this is how the engineer creates these things to work. What I did is I excavated out, so that detail shows an over excavated area, almost like a septic system, to make sure that there are no unsuitable soils right there. So
who's the PE is gonna stamp the plan? Is that you?
that's me. That's me, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
Okay, and you're not gonna stamp the plan until you have.
Well, I just think it's bad for my customer. I just don't think a wetland scientist that wasn't on the site during the test hole should make that decision. So moving it
Through the chairman when you get a chance. Thank you.
Say that again.
Glenn's got to respond.
Through the chairman when
okay.
I just want to respond when you get a chance. That's all. Chairman.
Yep, that's fine. I mean, let's open that up for discussion with the commission, but the idea with the recharge chamber is to, reduce the flows coming off the gutters. This chamber will easily hold an inch of water statically without anything draining out. And what I would like to see is the water to be able to drain off to the side yard if there's a heavy storm. That's the purpose of the stormwater management. If I was on Cape Cod and this was sand, then I'd have no problem putting it in the front.
Yeah, Glenn, yes, you had a question.
Through the chairman. Thank you. Yeah, we weren't asking for the front of the house. We were looking still on the slope, and it's DEP that I'm concerned with permitting it. And I didn't see any test holes up in the front that would just, as you said, the soils were bad, but I was not looking in the front of the house. I was looking on the side of the house, more towards the front, but not in the front of the house, but on the side where 286 is, which is still on the slope. Even if it moved up 10 more feet, I'm not concerned with how much concrete is showing of the foundation. I'm concerned with a $20,000 or $30,000 floodplain study to get the people in.
If you look at the detail of this, Mr. Chairman, this recharge.
Could I ask one last
well
thing through the chairman? Was there test holes in the front?
No, so yeah, there was one almost right where the he dug down about 3 feet. I said, don't even keep digging there. The soil is just not, it's not great soil. The soil gets a little bit better as you move towards the hill for the wetlands, towards the wetlands. I'm not trying to put this thing closer than I have to. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm all set talking. If the commission approves it, but my concern is, again, my concern is only, and even if it was tight soil, I don't even care how big the Caltech unit was. My concern was any post-grading in the lower part of the valley because of DEP in the non-detailed floodplain study. This is the fourth, I said one earlier, this is the fourth one we've dealt with recently under the new DEP. In the past, and I've been doing it for 40 years, we could use the non-detailed floodplain study on an extrapolated line, and DEP said nothing. The recent DEP out of Worcester is calling out every non-detailed floodplain study, and either you're quite a bit above it on an extrapolated line, or you're doing the study to prove the line. And those studies cost a chunk. So that's why I was looking at moving it forward just to keep DEP satisfied, no appeal by them, and that was the end of the deal.
Do you all work for the same person?
I do. In fact, that same person is the person I'm trying to get into the house.
Well, wait a minute.
Potentially
but
having
hang
appeal.
on. But if you've got a dispute between, I'm not going to, for me, I'm not really in the position to resolve a dispute that costs your client money. Can't you figure this out and then come back?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
I'm all set. My clients told me one last thing, that Glenn, they're in line with me because they've seen how much work I do in this field. But I'm all set. He's the stamping engineer. You're right. We shouldn't be arguing, but it's not a money thing. It's a big money thing if it went sideways, sir.
Personally, I didn't see anything from DEP that said the recharge should go in the front of the building.
Okay.
You haven't dealt with the non-detailed
Mr. Chairman,
we won't go over it anymore. Thank you again through the chairman. Thank you.
Okay.
Move to continue?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Glenda. I think we need to get this worked out.
Excuse me, 1 second. This is the client. Can I speak for a moment?
Certainly. Could you identify yourself, please?
My name is Ayşegül Gülenç Hüseyin. I am the owner. My husband is here with me as well. We would really like this project to get started. And if there, earlier in the conversation, it sounded like you all were approving this as long as we could figure out what we wanted to do with the Caltech unit. But it sounds like I'm just confused why we would continue it if you were all in for it for the improvement aspect of it. Why would we wait for another meeting if we could figure out what to do on the back end?
Well, I'm willing to give you a little bit of time to figure it out, but I don't want to have this be a 2-hour working session for this one item here. We have a long agenda today.
Right.
But
I mean, if we can take it offline with our engineer and Glenn, would you be willing to approve the plan knowing that there may be an improvement coming?
Todd, you want to say something?
Well, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. So I guess I think the problem is that your engineer isn't going to stamp the plan that we need to approve for the work to happen. But I guess what I was just thinking as you're all talking about this, I mean, if you all get offline, and this is obviously up to the discretion of the chair, figure it out, and then come back on at the end of the hearing, we could talk about this again if you got it all straightened out, because you're right. But for the stamped plan thing, I was okay to move this thing along.
Yeah, so the current plan is what I'm saying. It's already been stamped with Bob Parente's original work. And it sounds like it may already, appease the Mass Department of Environmental Protection. I would like to know from, both of their, I'd like to hear from both of them the argument of like, what's the process of improving it. But if we can move forward with the current plan, knowing that you all approve it as it is, we would love to do that.
Okay. Mr. Glenn Kurowski.
Condition it.
Yes, sir.
If the current plan, which I believe is the plan we saw tonight, is approved, do you have any issue with that?
Yes, sir. No. My concern is only because DEP gets the order of conditions, but if the DEP accepts the letter that they haven't seen it flood over, here's the other caveat that under the regulation, if the issuing authority does not have any contention over us being in the floodplain by the ADU being caulked and further away, as looking at what DEP has to say. So we have a letter, in the letter should stand alone because there's no other words. In fact, I can get the exact language in 1 second. It's right here. It's under 1057 2A3. Flooding shall be the maximum lateral extent of floodwater which has been observed, that's the key word, or recorded. In the event of a conflict, the issuing authority may require the applicant to determine the boundary of borderlands of the flooding by engineering calculations, which shall be, and then it goes into it. So you are the issuing authority. You can accept this plan. The law allows you to accept that plan. And actually, at that point, because DEP at this point is not the issuing authority, you are, your decision should stand alone on the plan.
Okay.
Because we do have a letter in there that states that they haven't seen it flood over the cart road to the right of us as you're standing on the cul-de-sac facing in. So I can take it that under the reg, DEP does not, that I haven't seen, appeal something that's based on reg. And in the letter should get us over the hump. My deal with most projects is both to make sure that I have everything done that I would see. And I'm not running 75 projects across the entire state because I don't do the same thing for everyone. But we do have the clause working in our favor.
Okay, question here. What is the risk to the client if we vote on this plan as we've seen it tonight?
The only risk that could be is if DEP, which using the reg, and that they don't appeal if the commission votes on reg, you're within the performance standards. DEP, even I'm sorry to take this all up, but under something like a 1055 4B1 through 7, where you may allow the filling of some wetlands, it's a may clause, not a 53 clause. 1053. The DEP, like you using that may clause, the 55, to fill something up to 5,000, they won't appeal your decision because you are the issuing authority. So you may use it and they will not appeal it. This goes to Phil Nato. This goes for 40 years of working. So you're approving something where you have a comment from the neighbor. I haven't seen it flood. And so technically you have standing as the issuing authority, and you haven't you haven't contended, or you haven't argued that the point that the visual observation is inaccurate. So DEP doesn't have, I don't want to say a leg to stand on, but it's kind of what the term would be, legs to stand on to appeal. But again, I normally go, if I have one, even my own office, this is my son for 11 years, said, Dad, and I said, I go for everything that might be a problem with the state without costing my client excess money. And I didn't see moving it to the right-hand side, not in front, but more towards the front. But I'm all set if it doesn't move because we still have the letter from the abutter. And that stuff went to DEP.
Okay.
So I don't have any problem at this point.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I forget the other engineer's name.
Bob,
Bob.
I'll move it 10 feet forward, Mr. Chairman. I'll move it directly forward towards the stockpile, but I just don't want it in front of the unit, which is what I heard at the meeting. I heard front of the unit, so I heard it 5 times.
Oh, no. Could I, through the chairman? I
Mhm.
said to the gentleman there, I said, move it to the side or the front in email a couple of weeks ago. I never said to move it to the front during our conversation tonight.
My recommendation.
I said, move it
My
forward.
recommendation, Mr. Chairman, would be to leave it where it is. If DEP questions
I
it,
think
we'll
we
move
need to
forward.
continue. This is not
I'm all
getting
set.
better.
I'm all set.
Can
No, it
we-
is better. I think it could be approved under the conditions that it's in.
So if we approve the current plan that's been stamped already,
Yes.
that's what's
Yep.
going to go in.
Yep. Yes, sir. With the letter from the abutter. Again, that's key.
And I know that the applicants here, they want to get moving here. It's already been, we've already kicked it down the hill 1 month here already.
Yes, I thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I think we should close and issue it.
What's that, Glenda?
We should close and issue it, and then
Close and vote on it?
DEP comes back, and we'll take it from there.
Okay.
I'm not concerned about, I mean, I understand the DEP and the floodplain, and that we don't want to do a floodplain study because that's real expensive. I get that. That's fine. What's the effect of Bob, who has to stamp something, not stamping it? That's what I'm missing.
Through the chairman, it sounds like he's going to leave the stamp on the plan the way it is. And then he just mentioned a minute ago that he could move it 10 feet. Yes. And I never did say moving in front, not during this hearing process, not after I saw the plan that he created that with a couple of post grades in the lower valley that
All right, hang
technically
on.
might go away.
If we issue
That's
the
all.
order of conditions based on the information we have now, and
Yes,
DEP
sir.
doesn't require anything else, are you able to get a building permit based on this?
Yes.
I think
I'm
so.
fine then. Then let's do it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Everybody else got a lot of shaking heads here, nodding heads here. So we need a motion to close the hearing for 12 Saddle Hill Drive.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Dan. Roll call. Dan Clark.
Yes.
Todd Helwig.
Yes.
Don Johnson.
Yes.
I vote yes. Now we need
Thank you for your time, Commission.
Now we
I'm
need a
sorry.
motion to issue an order of conditions for 12 Saddle Hill Drive per the plan we have seen tonight and stamped by the engineer.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. Dan Clark.
Yes.
Todd Helwig.
Yes.
Don Johnson.
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay,
Now, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
you're ready to go. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Had trouble getting on.
Okay. Well, that was interesting. Todd, you jumped in front of me by about 1 cent. I was about ready to say time out, return to your corners, and come back out when the bell rings next month. But I didn't want to do that with a client. So anyway, Mr. Kowalski,
Anyways.
you're up again.
Yes, I am again.
13 River Street.
We,
a new plan coming, yes?
You have it. Yes, sir.
Can we get that posted, Glenda?
Oh, sorry, 1 sec. 13 River Street. Site plan. I think it might be this one. Hi.
Okay, I see it. It's very small.
No, it won't let me show what it looks like.
Oh, that's pretty good right there. If you just bring it up a little bit and then over. Right there, hold it. Oh,
Is that good?
that's good. That's good. Glenn, can you see that?
I'm still just on phone, but I don't need to see it. I know the plan by the back of my hand, so
Okay, well,
we've
we're
been working on it long enough.
looking at the plan with some
Yeah.
red marks on here, which represent access points, and I think the wall
Yeah.
to be repaired. So I know that
Yes, sir.
we continued this for a while because you had a hard time getting a contractor who was qualified to do this.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We now have them, and we also have through Colorado. It's called Rockery. There's a document on how to build stone walls, large industrial, commercial, battered back, chinking. That document, which we got from structural engineers west, it works for across the country. We have an engineer just left, Sherman and Friedrich out of Palmer, who took that document, reviewed it extensively, and then created the plan for the tall wall, the 9-foot wall that is the first upgradient wall. And the lower wall was not, when Mr. Bignali originally was looking at, similar to the walls that we built, whether it be 12 years ago down there with Jennings, which I was working with today on other restoration projects, which is who built that other lower portion of the wall. So the lower wall wasn't in contention, the one that's 4 feet and just under. This is the upper gradient wall, upper river wall, and that's what we show on the new plan, how to build it with detail, with battered back, with access points, with erosion controls, along with floating siltation booms. Each wall would be section of wall, the lower one and this upper one has its own plan now. Existing grades did the lower wall out of Dennis and Douglas, and this other gentleman out of he's out of Palmer, but where is where he lives. He did the upper wall, the more detailed Rockery is the term. We did send the Rockery document to the commission also and to DEP for future reference if you choose to have it in your library, because it wasn't easy to come across.
And again, what's the method that they're going to use for building the wall in the middle of a running stream, brook, river?
Well, similar to what we did a few years ago, we cordoned the section off with the floating siltation boom, which is a purchased product. We didn't make it. It has anchors on the bottom, chain anchors, floats at the top. We install it with waders, and then it just cordons off that section. So and this is mostly just removal of rock, and then rebuild in the same location. The newer wall, the taller one, is battered back slightly as the Rockery it would call for under that engineering document.
Okay. Would you wait to a certain time of the year when the river is maybe lower than now, or?
Well, unfortunately, the way things are going, I'm looking at my French River. I live on the river, and we're down to August flows now. So we're in a drought, as you know, and it was downgraded back up. I believe it was a month ago, but we're going to be, if things stay like this, we have said that we would do this during the low flow, which is similar to what we did quite a few years ago when we did the other portions of the wall. The lady, Miss Proctor, does regret, I believe, in not doing all of it at the same time, because the pieces that we left that were looked intact, well, again, this is colonial in nature made, and it just finally had its life expectancy. Now we're using larger rock, and we did send you photos. This stuff is 3 and 4 feet long, 4.5 feet long. That same excavator that would be used on this, I was with it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then today on a major restoration on Lake Whittemore. Who cares? In Spencer. But the point is, these people, the Jennings Construction and Lemansky Construction, are professional in building. We sent some other examples of walls that they did, at least to the engineers, to show what's going on. And this isn't small. The one problem with the taller wall, and I'll wrap this up, is sometimes, because I own a 1714 colonial mill site here, Larned. And anyways, the point is sometimes you get these quality people building walls, and then you ran out of big rocks, and he started using the small rocks is what fell in on that upper wall. I was in the river flagging the mean annual high water because it was required by DEP, and so that's all on plans now. And they also required us to do Chapter 91 because some rivers are under Chapter 91, and we sent that document in. The Chapter 91 Boston finally relinquished and said, no, you don't have to go through us. Initially, we had to present enough documentation, and after we did and showed them what was going on, and then we sent that also to you, that that was out of DEP that asked that.
Right,
So
good.
everything that was asked for, we did.
Thank you, Glenn.
And this would be big rock stuff. Again, stuff that doesn't move and is slightly battered back. And those dimensions are given on the plan.
Glenda,
The size of rock.
Glenda, where were you in this one? Now I think we've covered most of the open items, but I'd like to.
Yeah, I'm not really clear on if they're replacing that entire section or just the collapsed areas.
Just the areas that fell in, they're on the plan, those linear feet. We called out the linear feet of bank alteration, on both sections added together, land on the water body, temporary, no floodplain because the wall is built in the same location. The upper one is slightly battered back, so you'd get a slight bit of increase in floodplain storage. But the numbers were all, this has been sent to DEP for a while, so I know they don't normally comment back, but I've seen them comment back, but I haven't heard anything from them on it.
I'm saying, so like, is it this area too by the shed? Because there's a collapsed
Two
area.
separate areas being worked.
I'm sorry.
Two separate areas. Yes, go on. I'm sorry.
So this one before the shed was a collapse also? It says collapse wall. Is that getting repaired too?
As you first pull in the driveway directly in front of you, that's the upper wall. That's the Jeff LeBeau engineering. That's that upper wall, the taller wall, and the shorter wall again, shorter in height, longer in length, 75 feet, I believe it is, off the top. That is over near a shed. I don't recall.
No, there's a shed. The upper wall is near
trees.
The upper wall, I think, is near the shed, and then it goes down to the lower wall. It goes down to the steps and the bathtub.
Yep, the bathtub. Sure, the interesting features. Yes.
Yes. So that's kind of like the end of the construction of the lower wall. It looks like
it is the bathtub. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Both areas have fallen in.
Any questions from the commission? We've seen this for a while. Can't see if they're nodding heads, but I don't hear anything, so that's good.
I don't have any questions, Greg.
Okay, thank you. Any public questions? Anybody out in the public have an issue, questions or comments? I'm flipping through. I don't see any. Okay. So, Glenda, if you don't have any issues, then we can probably close the hearing and vote on the issuing an order.
Yeah, nothing further.
You're good?
Yes.
Okay, we need a motion to close the hearing for 13 River Street.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Roll call. Dan Clark.
Yes.
Todd Helwig.
Yes.
John Johnson.
Yes.
I vote yes. Hearing is now closed. Glenda, any special conditions here or not?
I don't think of any.
Okay. Then we need a motion to issue an order of conditions for 13 River Street.
So moved.
Second by
Second.
Dan. The roll call. Dan Clark.
Yes.
Todd Helwig.
Struggling with the mute button today. Yes.
Okay. John Johnson.
Yes.
I vote yes. All right.
Thank you for your time very much.
Thank you, Glenn. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. That is 13 River Street. Glenda, we're moving right along here. Smile.
Great. What
All
are we on?
right. We are now at, I'm showing 238 Hudson Street. Continuation for a revised plan, I believe. And I see Mr. Arnold has joined us.
Yes, thank you so much. Mark Arnold here with Goddard Consulting here on behalf of Shirley Terrio, the mother-in-law of Todd Yellick, who's a firefighter here in Northborough. Glad to update you that we've been able to communicate with the building department in Northborough. They had one change. They wanted the ADU outside the 35-foot no structure off the bank of the river. which we had discussions with you about, and you were fine with where we had it, but now it's further out. So, and we've also been instructed by the building department that they would like conservation to finish first before we go to the ZBA. And we are going to have a PE. I'm coordinating right now to get a PE on board just to stamp the plan. I've already talked to one or two. This is very basic for them. Basically, it's just like looking over the information the surveyor said, yeah, that looks accurate. It's stamped. There's nothing really additional review that's required by them except them having to be able to say that they can honestly say they signed and stamped it. So that's kind of where we're at. So we were hoping to have the hearing closed tonight and then move on to the ZBA. I don't think the ZBA is going to have anything significant in terms of their review because their review is strictly focused on the floodplain. And as we've demonstrated previously, we are reducing the structural size in the floodplain as well as moving it 34 feet further from the riverbank, which is an improvement. And on top of that, we still have the mitigation that's proposed on the bank with the low bush blueberries and the creeping junipers to kind of provide some restoration along the riverbank, although it's not required. So I'm going to show that screen, share that plan if you want, just so we have it in front of you. Here it is. So yes, you can see here now the ADU is 35.2 feet from the riverbank and the property line at the same time, actually, right there. So basically there's a good chunk of it is now within the existing gravel driveway that's in this corner of the ADU here. This is within existing lawn, and you can see here's the existing building, again, the existing roof line, and this is the green hatched area here that we have for that restoration, just to kind of create some green space along the river there.
Great. Now, Mark, what's going to happen to the space between the back of the ADU and the river now?
So basically it's going to be grass like it is now. So basically there's lawn right now in this whole area. And so basically we're just keeping it as lawn. So there's going to be basically some grass around the ADU, which means you can walk around it and look at everything, and you're not going to be right against like plantings and restoration area. So it's a nice kind of patch here to sit out, with your chairs and look out over the river, but also have this nice kind of like low growth, like natural like vegetation on the ground, which will kind of create a nice aspect to the natural space that they have there.
Yeah. We went to the site during our site walks and met the applicants, and both of them are I would say very environmentally conscious. So in terms of what we want to do, so that's good to know. They won't be dumping lots of fertilizer on the grass and all that kind of stuff. So.
No, they really love the river, and they really want to take care of the property, and they've done a really good job at it, and pollinators love that place.
Good. Glenda, comments, questions, concerns?
Yes, my concern is that if you can have the PE stamp the plan and certify that you're not changing the elevation, so the new ADU is at or lower elevation. We just want to make sure that when DEP sees this, they're not going to say that you have to do any compensatory storage. In other words, you're not raising the elevation with the new unit. If you could have the PE certify that.
Yeah, I think we could. I'm not sure how quickly we'll get him stamping the plan. Because I've been talking to several of them, and several of them are out like 4 or 5 weeks. In terms of like being able to get on top of things, just because everybody's so busy. That the slab is 237.49. The finished floor elevation here is 237.4. It is higher up. It's a very flat area, as you can see from basically this is 237 here. It's actually 236 around the shed here. It's a very flat area in terms of the topography. And we did have it, I don't know if you saw this. We had the surveyor Glenn put this together in terms of like what you have for surface elevations basically at the garage. Average is around 236.4. And so what do you have for the depth and the volumes? Basically, there's a negative square footage in terms of the existing garage is 922 square feet. Surveyors can calculate square footage easily enough. 910 is what's proposed. The change in the depth is the floodplain is 2 feet. 24 cubic feet of actual compensatory storage is actually provided. So basically, it's a larger structure being taken down, smaller structure being built 35 feet further from the river. And if the commission wants to condition a stamped plan to be submitted prior to start of construction, I think that's definitely fine because we are going to have to go before the ZBA. So I think the commission is definitely within their rights to require that, any plans that are approved by the ZBA be submitted to conservation to confirm if there are any deviations that require an amended order of conditions. That's definitely a standard kind of condition when there's two town boards that are making decisions. They often try to cross-reference each other and say, you have to submit each other's plans to us to make sure they don't, cross off anything that we already had in mind. And that's something that can happen separately at the same time, be allowed to get an order issued.
So Glenda, are you okay with moving forward with a PE stamp being an added condition? And you need to have a statement in there too, or does the plan cover your concern you brought up?
I think the plan will cover it. I mean, you have to get a PE stamp anyways, Mark, don't you, for the ZBA?
Correct. So basically, we'll have this plan stamped by a PE, yes.
And so you'll use that for the ZBA also. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Commissioners, any questions, comments, concerns?
Nope. None.
Okay, good. Glenda, you're good. One more time.
Yeah, just that condition for the PE stamp, and
Okay.
you don't need compensatory storage.
We need a motion to close the hearing for 238 Hudson Street.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by John. Roll call. Dan Clark,
Yes.
Todd Helwig,
Yes.
John Johnson.
Yes.
I vote yes. Hearing is now closed. Need a motion to issue an order of conditions for 238 Hudson Street with the special condition of a PE stamp required.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Dan. Roll call. Dan Clark,
Yes.
Todd Helwig,
Yes.
John Johnson.
Yes.
I vote yes. All right.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Very good. Good luck, Mark. Thank you. Okay. I am looking at 493 Church Street. And you just received the DEP questions today, Glenda, correct?
Yes, very similar to 12 Saddle Hill, ridiculously, as far as I'm concerned, silly, because they're so far away from the river, so far above the floodplain. And I think we have Thor with us can speak to the DEP's comments. Like Glenn was saying, I guess this is a new across the board rule for DEP, but I think Thor can probably explain better.
Is there anybody on the call from that?
Yeah, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear somebody.
Thor Akerley, professional wetland scientist with
Yes.
Williamson. Yes.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thank you, everyone.
So we walked the site, Thorsten. We walked the site last week, so I know we have a pretty good view of it. Do you have a plan you can put up?
I do, yes.
For those that are wondering where this is, it is off of, well, it's almost just right across. It's like the last lot in Northborough, just about. It's right across
Yes.
from Davidian's farm on Church Street.
That's right. And not to oversimplify things, but it's a very small ADU project. It's a 454 square foot ADU. If you're looking at the site from Church Street, Davidian's is right behind you here. Looking at it from Church Street, you have a paved driveway that exists today, as well as a 3-bedroom house. Septic system's located in the front, and the resource areas are associated with Cold Harbor Brook. We have BVW, we have the mean high water, which we delineated, and we have a zone A similar to the Saddle Hill road project. And we did do a good bit of topography out here, so we have a pretty good mapping of the property, elevations and whatnot leading up to the river. DEP's comment was, we don't have a BFE, a base flood elevation for this flood zone, and they've only graphically depicted it. I see what the regulations say. I know you folks are familiar with with it now because it's coming up, I guess. But I've been doing this for 8 years, and I've never seen, we operate mostly in the Northeast region. I haven't seen that division of DEP ever say this about a zone A. We're really quite a ways away from it. I know the elevation difference isn't tremendous, but You can see in here the existing contours vary from 392 up to 394 and a little higher as you move towards the back. It does get a bit higher. The river flows towards Church Street, so it does get a bit higher in here. The lowest point where you could potentially see floodwaters, I guess, entering the property would be right in here where you have 392 and a half to 393 and a half or so. And then it does drop down a bit as you get over into this portion of the site, which is around 390. So our assumption is that it would be pretty hard for the floodwaters to rise, 7 feet above or 3.5 or 6.5 feet above the inverts, those metal pipes, those 48-inch metal pipes, get over this hump and inundate this portion of the property. But absent of having a detailed flood study, we can't say definitively. Doing a flood study just isn't really a feasible thing to do for an average homeowner. As you know, it's a very expensive process that you have to study the entire watershed, and this is actually a really big watershed. What I suspect happens in this portion of Church Street is that water, in the event of a severe flood, does overtop, these pipes potentially, and it flows towards the other side of Church Street, which is a lot lower. This area of Church Street is around elevation 392. You can see the 392 contour comes up right here along the road. And so my assumption is that FEMA saw this and said, well, it comes in here, and then if it does overflow these pipes, it runs across behind Davidians and follows Cold Harbor Brook back into that area. We did reach out to the property owners just to see if they've had any experience with the flooding. The current owner sent us an email, which I forwarded to Glenda just 15 minutes ago as I heard this discussion and double checked the regulations. She said she's been there for 15 years. She hasn't seen any flooding on her property. She did also ask the prior owner, who was there for 40 years prior to her, and she also never observed flooding on her property either. And I know the regulations seem to say that seems to satisfy, saying, hey, the flood line, this is probably as accurate as we're going to get it. This limit of the zone A as FEMA's shown it. It really is the best available data. It's everything's so spread out here. I doubt we'll find more accurate information. And so, I guess I'll leave it with that. We are also on the very outskirts of the riverfront area, I should note as well. The 200-foot riverfront area cuts right across here. And so being within a paved driveway, we summarized the redevelopment regulations. I saw DEP note that we included both new construction and redevelopment, but you still have to meet the general performance standards for working riverfront area, which we highlighted in the narrative. I was planning to point that out to Glenda and DEP, but the comments came in late today. So that's the project in a nutshell. There's no tree removal. Everything is proposed within existing lawn or the paved driveway. There's really no proposed grading here. You may have a little bit of filling on the back side of the foundation here, with the top of foundation being at 392.33 and the existing grades being a little bit lower here, but we don't anticipate needing to remove the 18-inch tree here or the 24-inch tree here. And so we believe we've minimized the impact to the resource areas, and being so far away from the brook, we think that we've satisfied the alternatives analysis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you are a long way. I mean, you're almost out of the 200 foot.
Exactly. You can't really get further away.
No. Glenda, questions from your side, comments?
Like you said, we do have a file number. We could wait and have him just send us a response to DEP comments, or we could approve it. I have photos if anyone wants to see where it's going.
Commissioners, questions, comments from you?
What is that shaded polygon on the plan?
This?
No, the big round one.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
It's a ledge outcrop.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay.
Yeah, hidden.
Any more questions? we have any public comments? Let me take a quick look here. I don't see any hands up. No. Okay. Glenda, what's your thought about approving this with the condition that we need? What was it? There was something that was outlying there, right? That from the DEP comments, you were looking for something from Thomas Thorson.
Just a response to his response to DEP's comments. Really is.
That's for the file, really, right?
Yeah, all I would ask, is just for our information.
Okay. So we could make that a condition.
Yeah, we can do that, and we'll have the owner sign a statement with the prior owner, maybe for the file, so you have that as a backup for the flood information as well.
Yeah, that'd be good. Then we can say, look, we asked the applicant for these materials, they provided them, so we were all set.
Okay.
DEP's crazy lately. We don't know what they're going to do.
So part of the ADU is going to go in that past piece of the driveway where we parked.
Yeah.
And then goes to the right. Yep.
Yeah. It's basically in this lawn area, literally right there.
Right. That's what's going to go, right?
Right there.
Very flat.
Yeah.
And so, like we said, it's ways away. Okay, I'm good. Do we have a motion to close the hearing for 493 Church Street?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by John. Roll call. Dan Clark.
Yes.
Todd Helwig.
Yes.
John Johnson.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Now we need a motion to issue an order of conditions for 493 Church Street with a special condition as noted about receiving documentation around the DEP comments.
So moved.
Second that one.
Second by John. Roll call. Dan Clark.
Yes.
Todd Helwig.
Yes.
Todd Helwig. It's John Johnson.
Yes.
I vote yes. All right. Very good.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Yeah, 35 Solomon Pond Road, Glenda, but we already issued an order of conditions last month on that. So.
Right. I just wanted to let you guys know that that I issued it. File number came in late.
Okay. What else do we have here? We move on. Enforcement. Do you want to talk about Riley Road, the emergency search?
Yeah, not really.
Okay, fine. It's fine.
Cleanup's going well. We want to get a little more soil to take off site, and then they're going to be wrapping up with them. Then they have to do some longer term monitoring, but most of the work's done.
Okay. Hey, Dana Volk.
Yes, I'm here.
Getting some nasty reverb here.
What happens is, particularly from some of your microphones here, when you have your mic on, it comes through the speaker and it's called feedback. The best thing to do is to have everybody muted until you want to talk. If everybody could just mute, and then when you talk, unmute, and then when you're done, mute, please.
Okay.
There were a lot of people on, and it's just, trying to police this it gets kind of tough, so if everybody can just do that, please. Thank you. So
there's no magic button you can push to make this go away.
No, there's no, it all has to do on everybody else's end, not me. So if somebody else, either the speakers are too loud or whatever it is, that's causing it. So there's nothing I can do on my end. So
all right, very good, thank you. Glenn, how about a quick you know what? We're going to hold off here. We'll go over the enforcement. We want to talk. We have the review of the forest presentation, right?
Yes, but I don't see. Is anyone from our forestry company here?
Let me see who we have. I don't see anybody.
Doesn't look like it.
I've got a Barry Crimmins land use law.
I think I told them to comment on by 7.
All right. Well, we'll move ahead with the enforcements update. How about 186 Barefoot Road?
Yes, I got an update from Matt today. It was a long update, but basically, to boil it all down, he said that all the natural vegetation is coming back. The planted stuff's 10 planted shrubs are surviving. The area has been seeded. He just recommended that there's some gravel areas that need to be raked out to spread the seeds some more. So it's and he sent photos in that update. But if you guys are looking for, I don't know what you're looking for. Are you looking for like 75% more vegetated before we sign off on it? Because it's not. There's still some bare areas. It's not. It's probably 50% vegetated at this point. So I feel like it wouldn't hurt to wait a month or two to just make it fully vegetated to our liking.
We'll keep it on the list then.
It just needs a little more time.
What's that?
Just a little more time, like a month.
Yep, okay, fine. 45 Belmont Street, Route 9. We can't do much about that. We know that's just an ongoing issue. Zero Saddle Hill. Zero Saddle Hill Drive. That's the one that Glenn's working on with Mr. Oberg, I believe, right?
I'm sorry.
Zero Saddle Hill?
Yes. We're still waiting on Glenn for, I don't know, a report or something.
Okay. 15 Settlers Road. That's an interesting one.
We're waiting on the stormwater management land disturbance permit. I met with both the applicants. I can't remember before our last meeting, but kind of recently. And their thing is that we had an existing delineation that we am in the order of conditions that's, by the way, still valid, because the Extension Act does apply to local permits as well. So they have an order that we had agreed upon delineation, and they don't think it's fair for us to come and say that there's fill now. But they did agree to do some mitigation. Since we know that there were some wetlands that weren't included, they would do some mitigation. But right now, we just want to focus on the stormwater. And then I'll work with Matt to do some investigation on how much was filled, even though it was never delineated.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been some filling there, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but
John, you walked down there, right? You muted.
Yeah, yes, I walked it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like there's been some wetlands filled in there.
Yeah, that's right. That's correct. And I don't understand why they put the fencing in there and then put the wood chip, so if you want to call it, right up against the fencing. None of it makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We'll continue with that one. Cedar Hill Street, that's the one with Marlboro, right, Glenda?
yeah. The Herod Epsilon, I guess, I'm not sure if I'll meeting, but they're going to meet with the wetland scientists 8:30 on a Teams meeting in the morning.
Okay.
And he's going to give us an update. I'm not sure if I'll make the meeting, but I can get an update.
Okay.
Barbaro agent.
Discussions and other items here. We have farm management planning, but they did provide us with a presentation. Dan, you saw that. I saw it. Thank you for your comments, Dan. They're all right on that side for my 2 cents. They were going to show tonight and walk through it. If they don't show, I think maybe, Glennie, we could send it out to the rest of the commission.
Yeah, we could even like go through it tonight if you guys want. Yeah, I'm just going to shoot him an email to see what's
Okay. While we're waiting for that, a couple of items here we can talk about. The Tom Beals Memorial Update. I have spoken to Sudbury Valley, and they are in support of it. they hold the CR on it. We own the land, or have the land in Northborough. So they've asked, and I communicated that we've asked the folks working with Tom's family to get a picture of some benches. I think they decided on a bench and a location somewhere along the Shunders Field Trail is where they like to put it, and send that along to SVT. SVT then will approve that, and they can go ahead and do it. So making slow progress on that. We're moving forward though on that. Sadie Stone is leaving us. Heard from Sadie the other day that she had accepted a new job in Framingham. So she is moving in 2 weeks. And this was her last meeting, which she was going to be at, but she wasn't. So we have an opening. I've spoken to Angie Snowden up in the office, told her it's coming. Glenna, she's going to wait for you to come up with some details, Angie. But we'll, if anybody knows of anybody that they are aware of that will be a good commissioner or something, pass the name along. There's an opening. There's a question. Glenda would like us to move the August meeting from the 10th to the 3rd of August. If we do that, what does that do to anybody's schedule that you know about? It's currently 8:10. Proposal is to go to 8:03.
Works for me. I wasn't going to be able to make the 8:10 meeting, so
Well, there
now
we
I
go.
can. It helps me out.
I think I'm out though.
Oh, we lost one.
Oh, we're back to 0-0. Okay.
I might be out.
Okay, Todd, you're definitely out.
Give me 5 minutes, I'll let you know.
Okay.
How do we know we only need 4 people?
Okay, John, you are out, you said, for sure?
I might be tentative.
Okay. Question mark. Todd's a question mark. Dan's I'm good. We'll get checked with Justin and Kelly.
I'm out.
You're
I'm
out.
confirmed.
Okay. All right. So we need 4. So we got 2 definites. So we'll move ahead here and see how it goes. That's all I've got. Hey, Todd. You're
Yes.
muted. You were muted, I bet, right?
I'm not now.
Okay. Did you say last month that CPA money would be a possibility for the forestry effort?
I think I probably said that it was available for the pond stuff.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean it's also not available for the forestry stuff.
Okay. All right. I suppose, well, I'd like to see how much it's going to cost us. I mean, I've got to see what this is going to be because, we know this is a fairly hot topic. And I want to talk to the select board member who is now going to be representing us, who will be determined tonight, and give them the update. And I really would like it not to be we need $400,000 from non-existing coffers to pay for this, as opposed to here's how it's going to cost the town nothing or literally nothing. So we got to get that information from the forester. Oh, somebody's joining us. Artem's going to join us, huh? Artem, welcome. You're muted. Still muted. No, you're not.
Thanks. Yeah, there you go. I got it now.
Okay.
How's it going?
Good.
Luke should be joining any minute now. I just basically expected to be here at 7:30, so that's when I'm at.
Okay.
Do you want me to kick off the presentation? My section is first. Anyway, Luke would be following after me.
Yeah. One question. You received some input from Dan Clark on our team. I think you saw that.
Yep.
One of the questions I had here is 45 slides is about 30 slides too many in my viewpoint. But 45 slides is just not going to do it. I mean, we got to
Yeah,
figure out
sure.
how to cut it down. It's all good info, a lot of good info in there and so forth. So that's just a comment. But I'd like to run through the presentation for the viewers here to see it on the commission. It's not a public discussion here at this point in time.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't sure what the purpose of this was. We didn't get a lot of, like specific guidance about what to do. So I just kind of did like a general, like why we should do what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then a little bit about how we're doing it. Well, you'll see it through the agenda, or you probably already did see it. But just basically just to make sure that you guys know the background. We can certainly cut some stuff out. And I don't know if you want to do it now, the cutting out of the stuff, or I guess I'm not sure if this is the presentation or if this is just a run through for you folks so that
This
you're aware.
this is a run through for us.
Okay, all right. I guess so you're thinking like it should be more like a 15-20 minute presentation?
I would think so. I mean, let's run it through quickly tonight if we can do it quickly. And Dan's seen it, I've seen it, but John and Todd have not. Let's do a quick look.
Okay. Hey, Luke, just so you know, if you can hear me, the conversation that we had just now was basically that we should probably cut some stuff down. We'll run through it to, more or less what we're discussed. I'll try to make it quick, but otherwise we should try to make it maybe a little bit shorter.
Okay.
I guess I could do it. I'll do it through a PowerPoint. I don't know if it makes a difference, PDF versus PowerPoint, in terms of how it transports. Share it. Can you guys see that full screen pretty much?
Yes.
All right. So hello and welcome to our presentation about the Edmund Hill Woods Conservation Area, ecological forest management, and hazard tree reduction. We represent Emerald Forestry, which is a small business based out of New York, with Albany, New York being the closest branch of our company. My name is Artem Traeger. I'm the Executive Vice President of Emerald Forestry. I've written forest management plans and carried out project management and contract oversight for multiple private, institutional, municipal, state, and federal clients with focus on management for multiple objectives, such as degraded stand rehabilitation, timber production, wildlife habitat, and carbon sequestration, among others. I have a doctorate in forest and natural resource management from SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry, as well as a master's degree from Binghamton University in applied ecology. I am a Society of American Foresters certified forester, International Society of Arboriculture certified arborist, technical service provider for Natural Resource Conservation Service, and a commercial pesticide applicator. I'll let Luke introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luke Day. I'm the field supervisor from AMRO's Albany branch. I've worked on numerous properties while working at AMRO. I lead a crew of forestry technicians in completing forest inventories, timber marking, tree felling, invasive species control, and tree planting. I'm also a certified technical provider in forest management through the NRCS, and I have a significant amount of experience in writing forest management plans as well. I'm also the GIS specialist at AMRO, as well as an ISA certified arborist and commercial pesticide applicator.
Thank you, Luke. So I wanted to go through the agenda for the presentation. First, we'll cover why there's a need to manage woods. Next, we'll go through and discuss what forest management can accomplish and how we can do this, as well as discuss the conditions within Edmund Hill Woods Conservation Area and the proposed management within the woods. Finally, we'd like to gather feedback from the folks listening to this presentation. And as we discussed, please let me know if you know any of this or if you think maybe some of this should be just kind of cut out. Just definitely feel free to, let me know. We can just keep it moving. So first thing I'd like to cover is the fact that forest management goals and objectives depend on the individual landowner, with possibilities that are as diverse as the landowners themselves. These include wildlife, aesthetics, recreation, peace and quiet, summer refuge, family farm ownership, maple syrup production, growing timber, hunting, clean water, investment properties, and so on. Many or most of these are likely to be present for some landowners, but certainly if you look at the bottom right photo, there are likely to be as many individual goals and objectives for their woods as there are folks in that picture. I would also like to cover how forests develop from an old field or a clear cut or just some sort of a disturbance to a fully grown forest stand. You'll hear us refer to forest stands throughout the presentation. These are specific areas of a forest that are fairly uniform, or at least uniform in how diverse they are, and easy to identify by their tree species composition and their age or multiple ages, as well as some additional attributes. So after a disturbance or agricultural abandonment, a number of seedlings become established. And at this point, it is typically very crowded, especially if there's a good seed source and if there's not a lot of herbivory or competition from other herbaceous or shrub species. Sometimes when the tree regeneration establishment is truly successful, there may be thousands of tree seedlings per acre. As these trees grow, the competition that comes with the density decreases the diameter growth of each individual tree, while typically the height of the trees continues to increase while they're actively competing for sunlight. As the trees grow, we get to this point in the stem exclusion phase in the center, where the trees are pretty stagnant in terms of their diameter growth. They're continuing to gain height, and the trees are experiencing too much competition, with some trees just not being capable of surviving through this period of time. Individual trees are continuing to suffer mortality throughout the stem exclusion phase. As some of the trees die, their neighbors get some competitive advantage and continue growing, but as they continue to get bigger, they encounter the same competition from other slightly bigger trees, and this intense competition pattern continues until we get to what we sometimes refer to as middle-aged woods. It can be as few as 100 trees per acre at this stage, with full canopy closure and minimal sunlight at ground level. At this point, when a sufficient amount of overstory trees have died due to small disturbances, insect outbreaks, or just competition, that's when we get to the understory reinitiation phase, where we have tree seedlings becoming established in the understory under the more mature trees. The number of seedlings is very dependent on species and the amount of sunlight reaching the ground. For multiple species require quite a bit of sunlight to become established, so these would not become established underneath the canopy of existing trees, called these shade-intolerant trees. These are trees like aspen, walnut, and most pines and oaks, at least to some extent. There are some trees that we call shade tolerant that are capable of establishing underneath a full or nearly full canopy. These are primarily trees like sugar maple, hemlock, beech trees, and yellow birch, at least to some extent for that one. But for the most part, the reinitiation phase of the understory is going to be relatively sparse by comparison to the stand initiation phase. At the end of the pattern, we get to the late successional woods, also sometimes called steady state, which is a bit of a misnomer, or old growth phase, where you have multiple different tree ages, a lot of snags, a lot of down woody debris, some canopy openings, some really large trees, and some small trees. This represents a standard model of forest development to a late successional stage. However, at any point in time, this development could be interrupted by an insect outbreak or a stand replacement disturbance, such as a hurricane, tornado, human forest management. So this is just a visual example of the two stages of forest development in this area of Massachusetts, with the first photo being typical of early stem exclusion. The second photo of the older stand is typical of late stem exclusion, where the trees are quite big, but they are really overcrowded and are beginning to suffer some mortality in this particular stand. Individual trees in the stand are not growing fast in their diameter, but are continuing to get taller.
Artem, just a second, if I could just 2 slides back. My opinion, I think we spent way too long on this particular slide. I think it's probably too much detail for the audience. Okay. That's my opinion. I think you could show this slide, but basically summarize that, forests change through time as trees grow and get bigger. And I think you could try and condense it a little bit to layman's terms.
Sure. I was just trying to kind of basically cover the entirety of forest ecology in this slide.
Yeah. Well, again, I think for most people, you're going
to lose.
You're going to lose them. Yeah, I think you're going to lose them.
Sure, absolutely. I can definitely cut down a lot of that information. Just try to get to the real short point.
Yep.
So why are we interested in managing forests? To begin, there are ecological and biological reasons for forest management. The forests that exist in the landscape today are not experiencing the same level and type of disturbance that they would have in the past, which includes changes to the patterns of wind, ice, fire, indigenous land management or human land management, and large browsing animals. This lack of a natural pattern of disturbance that has existed in millennia past leads to diminished ecosystem function. One large aspect of this is that the large browsing animals, deer, tend to be quite detrimental at this point because there's not enough predation keeping their populations in check, meaning the deer at their current densities are higher than would be beneficial for good tree regeneration establishment. These changes in natural disturbance regimes have some unintended effects, including establishment of invasive or interfering shrubs and other species that have a high shade tolerance that can grow well under shade. These include species such as barberry, honeysuckle, bittersweet, multiflora rose, and so on, which do not get eaten by deer and typically shade out native tree regeneration. In addition, there are many ecologically valuable native tree species that we think of as everyday important tree species like walnuts, oaks, cherries, white pine that require a certain amount of sunlight at minimum partial sunlight and commonly full sunlight to become established. Sorry, I just was thinking whether or not I should get into it. I guess I'll go through it. In addition, forest growth after agricultural abandonment or standard placing disturbances often creates an even-aged, relatively low diversity stand composition. If you recall the stem exclusion phase, which in addition sometimes only has 2 or 3 tree species. So to quickly define even-aged forests, this refers to woods where all trees become established essentially at the same time. There are only a few species. These are far more vulnerable to insects, disease, and drought because these are close to a monoculture with a similar canopy height, where trees are nearly all the same. This makes it easier for pests and diseases to transfer between trees. A good example of this is the spread of emerald ash borer in ash-dominant stands. In addition, during the stem exclusion phase, standing dead trees accumulate and increase the hazards to land users and also increase fire and pest risk due to the amount of standing or down woody debris that can either catch on fire or provide a substrate for pests, whether or not fungal, insect, or otherwise.
So Art, I'm going to interrupt you again, that last slide. So I think this is probably one of the most important slides in the presentation. My experience with the general public who doesn't know a lot about forest management is the belief that forests can take care of themselves. Sort of the idea that why are we trying to do something that nature can do on its own? So I think this is really a critical slide to emphasize why that is, particularly in New England and particularly in Northborough, why that's a sort of a false assumption. So I guess my point is, I think this slide's important, but I would maybe focus on just those aspects of why forests it's really challenging for forests to conduct themselves sort of in a completely natural process because of all the things that have been done to forests over time. So to assume that forests can take care of themselves is a problem because we've removed so many of the biological processes that would normally happen in a forest. So you can't make the assumption that they're okay to handle themselves by themselves when all those things that we've done to the forest have disrupted those processes. I guess my point is somehow to really emphasize this slide.
Okay.
I think the public is going to question, why are we proposing to manage those forests after all this time?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Do you think I should spend more time, less time, add something else to it that I haven't yet, subtract something? And this goes for everybody besides just Dan, but certainly you, Dan, as well.
Let me, I have a couple thoughts, but I don't want to bog down everybody. I can send you some thoughts I have on this. I have an idea of how I think I think this information could be presented to the public. So let's get through it. I can send you something.
So another reason to manage forests is for public safety and municipal liability purposes. Unmanaged suburban forests accumulate hazard trees faster than managed ones. This is pretty obvious when you think about the amount of dead trees that are going to die during the stem exclusion phase. All these dead trees will either have to fall down on their own, or they can come down using equipment and skilled know-how from loggers or arborists. Municipal forests with active recreation, hazard trees are a foreseeable public hazard and liability, like this dead tree over trail at Edmund Hill Woods that could be potentially an injury or worse waiting to happen. As a professional, I was definitely uneasy walking near that tree right over the trail, which it would directly fall on. The only thing that's holding it up is that bent tree with a large amount of pressure on it by the dead stem. So proactive management of forests is a best practice for municipal ownerships to reduce liability and improve public safety. So beyond safety, wildlife requires a certain amount and type of habitat to survive. And while we think of forests as having trees and providing a certain amount of habitat, there are many reasons for why it's not exactly adequate. Focusing on the wildlife aspect, we can use birds as an indicator species group because they're visible, they're very well tracked, and they're one of the main types of wildlife that people are really interested in, maybe besides folks that hunt. So recent research found that there's nearly 3 billion birds gone over the last 50 years from the North American landscape. This includes a loss of approximately 170 million or 17% decline in eastern forest birds since 1970. You may be familiar with wood thrushes. They're some of the most common and charismatic forest birds with a beautiful song. At the same time, about 6 in 10 wood thrushes have been lost since 1970, so these populations are declining quite rapidly. So one of, if not the largest reason for why these birds are experiencing population declines is due to a loss of quality habitat. Now, we already discussed that trees and forests provide some habitat, and the forest area has, if anything, increased since 1970 in the northeastern US. However, the quality of the habitat has been declining. This is due to forest fragmentation due to changes in land use, for example, forests being converted to home lots, shopping centers, or agricultural use, which increases the forest edge or that intersection of the edge of the forest and a different land use type. To be clear, it's not the same as the difference between a young forest habitat and an older forest, which is still part of the forest landscape matrix. I'll get into that in a minute. In addition, there's been a dramatic increase over the last few decades of non-native invasive species and interfering vegetation, or species that do not allow for establishment of desirable tree species in young forests. In addition, there's deer overabundance due to a lack of predators and a general decline in hunting, as well as presence of a number of middle-aged forests with that homogeneous vertical structure. We have just basically one canopy layer at the top with nothing but tree trunks at the understory and mid-story levels, which is kind of like a desert in terms of habitat. Some other reasons for a decline in quality forest habitat includes the increase in forest pests that have been killing off a number of ecologically valuable species, including beech trees via beech bark disease and now beech leaf disease, ash decline due to emerald ash borer, hemlock woolly adelgid, and a number of other ones as well. Climate change and erratic climatic changes also impact wildlife and forests, with warm weather patterns happening a lot more frequently during the winter, cold weather lasting longer during spring, and so on. So I also wanted to expand on the difference between a permanent forest edge between forests and other land use types and young old forest matrix, particularly from a wildlife perspective. There are a number of bird species that exclusively live in forested habitats and use aspects of both young and old forests. So for example, on this slide from left to right, where beginning on the left is either a clear cut or previously agricultural area, develops over time to a late successional stand, either as a time sequence or in direct proximity to each other. The bird species that use these areas change with the forest structure. With the early stages of a forest, there are species that many people maybe think of as being open field, but really they are forest species like indigo bunting. And as the trees get taller, to what we would call young forests, we start getting prairie warblers. And then as they become more dense and taller yet, we get species like black-throated blue warblers. And then in the middle-aged, more late successional forests, we get species like ovenbird, thrush, pileated woodpecker, and so on. What's interesting is that birds will oftentimes go from their mature forest nesting habitat to feed in young forests. For example, wood thrushes will get food from young forest stands or patches that we would typically associate with prairie warblers and other young forest species. Wood thrushes will also use young forests for the food resources during their fledging phase, or the phase where the birds leave the nest as they mature and feed on a number of insects that are much more abundant in young forests. So how do we define quality habitat? Habitat diversity is key to benefiting a number of forest birds as well as other wildlife. And this refers to diversity at both a landscape scale and stand level habitat conditions. From a landscape level habitat perspective, forest age class diversity is important. This is something that we often call horizontal structural diversity with mature woods near young forests. On a landscape level, which you can think about as being about 2,500 acres, there's a need for at least 5 to 10% of young forest stands within a mature forest matrix, which allows for full breeding cycle habitat needs for migration, nesting, fledging, and so on. As I previously described, wood thrushes will nest in mature forest and feed in the young forest as they fledge or they travel. At a stand level, vertical structural diversity becomes very important. Vertical structural diversity means that you have a continuous canopy layer from understory to the overstory. Sometimes we refer to this as the green wall. The ideal composition of the green wall should be native non-invasive plants because they provide the preferred nutrition source that these animals need, as well as a combination of large diameter trees, medium-sized trees, and so on, some dead standing cavity trees, softwood inclusions, as well as down woody material. Another reason to manage forests is for carbon purposes. And I'll go through it. I think this is actually one part that we could probably cut out. With two primary concepts that need to be identified. Carbon storage is the amount of carbon that is stored within an ecosystem, specifically the forest. Carbon sequestration is the amount of carbon that is actively being taken up from the atmosphere by a forest ecosystem to be stored. Mature forests have low, sometimes near zero carbon sequestration, so as much carbon is released out of these forests as is being taken up by them. One of the defining characteristics of these forests, however, is high carbon storage with a large amount of carbon that's continuously stored within the large trees. However, one caveat is that there may be some sort of a disease outbreak, fire, or another canopy disturbance, which will cause the trees to fall down, and then the carbon will either burn or decay as part of the natural decomposition process. Within a managed forest, carbon sequestration, the carbon uptake, is much larger. So this can be as much as 5 to 10 times increase in carbon uptake on an annual basis by comparison to the late successional or managed forests. In addition, within managed forests, carbon in wood products is often stored for decades, if not centuries. That's the material that's being pulled out of the woods. If you think about it, many houses are built out of wood, in addition to other wood products like furniture and so on that are being continuously used. My house is 170 years old and it's made out of wood. So from a carbon perspective, Edmund Hill Woods is somewhere in that late stem exclusion phase to early understory initiation phase time period. That means it is slowing down in terms of carbon sequestration with a higher carbon storage. However, if managed, trees within the woods and the wood products that come out of the woods, as well as the increase in young forest growth, would improve the carbon sequestration and strike a good balance between sequestration and carbon storage. This is just another visual representation, just as a reminder of what that looks like, with carbon being taken up on the left and stored on the right primarily. So finally, choosing to do nothing is still a choice with relatively predictable consequences. This includes invasive species spread. It also includes regeneration failure, where there are no tree seedlings coming up in the understory, or at least very few of them. And also an accumulation of hazard trees in the overstory that are threatening the public safety. By the way, all of these photos were taken at Edmund Hill Woods Conservation Area. In addition, all of these things lead to a loss of structural diversity and a decline in the resilience of the ecosystems to disturbance. It also leads to less ecologically valuable forests and increased woody fuels in case of catastrophic fires. Summarize, inaction has costs. They're just deferred and less visible, yet the costs are very real when something goes wrong. So now that we discussed why it's important to manage forests, we should probably define what is forestry. Forestry is the profession that embraces the science, business, and art of creating, conserving, and managing forest land for the continuing use of the resources and enjoyment of the land. Foresters, such as ourselves, are practitioners of forestry, provide long-term science-based planning for forests based on landowner objectives. Maybe the PDF would have been better. So this is a good time to remind you that forest management goals and objectives are the paramount reason for why forests carry out any activities on forest land, which are, once again, quite variable depending on the land ownership and the purposes of that particular. So we as foresters can do several things. We can favor stand composition, meaning we select the trees that we prefer to keep. We can control tree density, primarily by decreasing it. We can promote natural regeneration, which is related to the first and second points. We can manipulate the age structure of a stand. We can either convert an even age stand, meaning one where all the trees came up at the same time, to a multiple age stand, or potentially vice versa, although that maybe is not as common. We can also determine the length of a rotation for economic or ecological reasons, and especially now, something that a lot of foresters do, including us, is control invasive and interfering species. We also exclude deer via the fence you see pictured to the right, and we also plant trees. Actually, this picture represents all of the above things that foresters typically do with forest management. We carried out pretty much the entire full suite of actions on this particular property. So we accomplish management via two strategies, first of which includes a number of approaches lumped under that uneven or under the even age management term. There are some intermediate treatments like thinning, forest stand improvement, where we focus on accelerating the growth of the stand by removing trees that are either undesirable, have poor growth form, or are likely to die. Typically, even age management past the thinning stage is carried out via regeneration cuts to promote natural tree seedling establishment, which reduces the overstory fairly heavily, including using shelter woods, which can be high density shelter wood, kind of like this, meaning you leave a fairly dense overstory. It could be lower density one, like this shelter wood will less than half of the canopy remains, like what they did in this cut in the Green Mountains in Vermont. Next step down from a shelter wood in terms of density is a seed tree cut, where you leave only a few trees per acre to provide a quality seed source, as well as some overstory canopy for wildlife purposes, like this seed tree cut at Cornell University's Arnott Forest. Or it could be a full clear cut, like this regenerating clear cut in the photo. Typically, with a clear cut, we would follow a sequence of events so that tree regeneration is achieved reliably, cost effectively, and without failure, incorporating thinning to stimulate establishment of tree seedlings prior to cutting, several years ahead of carrying out the clear-cut overstory removal. The second forest management strategy that we typically use is called uneven age management, where it really consists of one of two things. Single tree selection, where we choose trees to cut throughout size classes, including some larger trees to harvest, as well as medium and smaller trees that could be thinned or harvested, sometimes also managing saplings to promote good forest composition. Second approach is group selection, where we create small group openings from about a quarter acre to about a half acre in size, although sometimes it could be larger or smaller depending on the composition and the purpose. These harvests create small openings that would be then reseeded from the surrounding trees. Both of these strategies, single and group selection, can be done in a hybrid approach where we create both group openings as well as harvesting some single trees in between the different groups. This can be a really good approach for increasing both the horizontal structural diversity throughout the stand and a vertical structural diversity within the woods. Now we're going to go over the woods in question. So the Edmund Hill Woods Conservation Area, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. Edwin Proctor donated Edmund Hill Woods to the town in 1967, which has been expanded somewhat through the years. Now incorporates an interpretive trail throughout the area, providing a recreational setting for the town's residents. Edmund Hill Woods consist of mixed hardwood and softwood forests with oaks and pines as the primary species. There hasn't been any active management on site for many, many years, probably since 1967. It's very likely that about half of the property became reestablished sometime between 1887 and 1938. It's also likely that at least at some point prior to the donation to the town, the property was logged. We're basing this primarily on microtopography, which is not as commonly within pit and mound formations, or basically where trees fall over, creating a tip-up mound, as well as the tree age structure. To provide you a little bit of background, the Edmund Hill Woods are highlighted on this drumlin in the picture from 1887, where about half of it appears to be in a field land use at the time. This is an aerial image of Edmund Hill Woods in 1951, with the highlighted area having some signatures that, while not definitive, are pretty consistent with a canopy that has been cut at some point prior to this time period. And now I'm going to hand it over to Luke. And if you guys want, we can kind of go through anything that you want to cut out or talk about or anything else like that before Luke kicks off. We can keep it going.
Okay, we'll keep it going. All right, thanks, Artem. So I just kind of wanted to kick it off by giving an update about what we've done so far, and then I'll talk a little bit about what our next steps are going to be. So a little bit of background. In 2022, Massachusetts forester James DeMaio wrote a really good management plan for enrollment in the state forest stewardship program. So that is kind of the basis of what we're going off of now. Subsequent to that, Amro Forestry was hired by the town late in 2025 to carry out a field assessment and inventory of the conservation areas, to update the existing forest management plans by incorporating the recommendations from the Forest's Climate Solutions Report, in addition to providing terrestrial invasive species control plans, creating harvest layouts and timber marking, coordinating invasive species control, and providing assistance with grant and cost share applications. All these things apply to both Mount Pisgah and Edmund Hill, but Edmund Hill is going to be the primary focus of what we're doing at this time. So far from what we've been contracted to do, we have completed the inventory and field assessment in February of 2026. To do this, we kept the stands consistent with the original management plan, just for consistency there. So nothing has changed. At this time, most of the management plan amendments are complete. We're just waiting on a few additional components before we end up finalizing those. We can go into a little bit more depth about what needs to be done, but we probably don't need to do that now. In addition, the invasive species control plans are mostly done. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but it's probably going to make sense to finalize those in conjunction with some of the CSIP funding that we're going to be applying for. Talk a little bit about that later on. In addition, Artem traveled out to the Wachusett Reservoir with Dan, I believe, to kind of use as an example for a site visit in the future, to kind of show different stages of forest management. And now we are obviously developing the public outreach meetings. So this is kind of the kickoff to that. Eventually there will be a field visit, probably both at the Wachusett Reservoir that Artem and Dan visited, as well as at Edmund Hill. So those are going to be our steps in the near future. Next slide, Artem. So this is a map of the Edmund Hill Conservation Area. The red outlines are the stand boundaries that the forester previously delineated, and we kept consistent. The green dots are our plots that we took when we did the forest inventory. Edmund Hill is approximately 105 forested acres. It's delineated into 3 forested stands. It's pretty largely surrounded by residential properties, and it's kind of now an important island of protected forest within the developed landscape. It also may provide some challenges for forest management, especially logging access, etc. Right now, it is accessible from Barefoot Road via the main entrance where a large parking lot is located. There are currently some well-established, marked, and well-used trails throughout the property that are commonly used for hiking, mountain biking, snowshoeing, and bird watching. So currently, the property does provide some valuable wildlife habitat, going off of what Artem was discussing. There is some relative maturity of the forest. There's a presence of trees that provide food for wildlife, mass-producing species. There are several wetland areas that add significant biodiversity. However, the forest is overstocked as a whole, which we'll look at a little bit more when we get to the individual stands. It does lack quality wildlife trees. Artem already kind of discussed what a quality wildlife tree is. It should have significant cavities, broken tops, limbs that provide forage and shelter. There's also limited down woody debris. It lacks horizontal and vertical structural diversity, and it lacks any significant primary successional habitat, which Artem gave a pretty good overview on those concepts previously. There's a minor to moderate invasive plant species present on the property. The invasive species are mostly located along the property edges. There's a significant amount of invasive species cover in the wetlands and also in the high traffic areas around the trail entryways. The common invasives that we inventoried mainly just included multiflora rose, Japanese barberry, tree of heaven. I will say we do need to do one more field visit during the growing season to inventory any herbaceous species that have come through, because we did do our initial inventory in February, so we couldn't see much of the ground cover at that time. In addition to the invasive plant species, the property was significantly impacted by the spongy moth infestation, which left a large amount of standing dead trees. Many of these are along trails, which Artem highlighted earlier, and there's a photo of that tree again there. Okay, so now to kind of break it down into the individual stands. Stand 1 is 43 acres. It's dominated by white pine with a small component of hardwoods. This chart here shows the basal area, relative density, stems per acre, etc., and as well as the species diversity in that stand. Generally, it's fairly even aged, and there are invasive species present in the areas that I mentioned previously, primarily along the edges of the stand, not as much in the middle. We can talk a little bit about the even age structure of the stand. So if you look at the graph on the bottom right of this slide, this is the Arbogast curve. This was developed in the 1950s by Carl Arbogast. It uses a reverse J curve, plotting the tree numbers, which is on the y-axis, and this is per size class, which is on the x-axis, and it's reflective of how many trees of each size class a stand can support while maintaining optimal growth. This approach is commonly used with single tree selection systems, which allows for multiple age classes to be present side by side in the same stand. So essentially, this shows both the current conditions and what you would want it to look like if we were managing an uneven age forest, if you were managing 4 uneven age conditions. So it shows here the purple dotted line is the Arbogast curve, which we would be trying to manage towards. The blue line, the zigzag line on the bottom, is the current stand condition. So in age classes where the current line is below the Arbogast line, you know there's an understock condition. And if the current line is above the Arbogast line, you know there's an overstock condition in that age class. Okay, stand 2 is a 50-acre stand. It's dominated mostly by oak species, northern red oak, black oak, white oak specifically. There is also an eastern white pine component, so it's a mixed wood stand. It's also fairly even aged. Stand 2 has a very sparse understory, not a lot of regeneration. There's also not much significant invasive species presence in this stand, likely due to an overcrowded overstory. So not a lot of light can reach the ground in this stand. I won't go through the Arbogast guide again in this slide, but you can see it's kind of the same issue here. There's some understock conditions in certain age classes and overstocked in others. All right, stand 3. Stand 3 is the smallest stand of the 3. It's only 13 acres and it contains the wetland area kind of located centrally on the property. It has a mix of white pine and hardwoods and is also even aged. There's a significant presence of flood tolerant species in the understory, dogwood, azaleas, etc. There are, as I mentioned before, a pretty significant level of invasive species in the wetland area. This is likely because there's less overstory, so there's more sunlight reaching the ground, so invasive species are more easily able to invade these areas. And then we can kind of talk about our recommended actions. I won't go into too much detail about what all these are because Artem did give a pretty detailed overview of these previously. But our options are generally some sort of overstory management to account for the overstock condition. These can be the practices that Artem mentioned previously, thinning, shelter woods, group cuts, etc. Invasive plant species should likely happen on the property to treat the multiflora rose, Japanese barberry, tree of heaven, etc. There should be some replanting to increase species diversity and to supplement natural regeneration. And in conjunction with that, there should be a harvest layout and some trail installation for logging access on the property as well. The photo to the right shows a heat map of where we found the most high densities of invasive species on the property. So like I said, you can see stand 3 is that wetland area, low canopy cover there, so there's a pretty significant presence. And then kind of more of a high traffic area on the northern portion, as well as the eastern portion in stand 1. Again, this will be updated after we do our walkthrough for the herbaceous species as well. Okay, next slide, Artem. I did want to spend a decent amount of time talking about the funding sources that we looked at. We did check out several funding sources, both state and federal programs. We looked at the Community Woodland Grant Program, the Climate Stewardship Incentive Program, and the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. We reached out to Mike Downey, who's the DCR Outreach Coordinator. He let us know that the Community Woodland Grant funding is completely allocated for forest year 2026. This grant did have a 25% match, so it probably would have been less optimal for the town because they would have been required to provide a 25% match of any funding that we used. So for this reason, we did have a conversation with Glenda that it would likely make the most sense to pursue the Climate Stewardship Incentive Program grant, which is what this slide shows here. It's CSIP for short. We also contacted Mike Downey to make sure there is a requirement to apply for this grant. You need an approved forest management plan. So we reached out to Mike Downey at the DCR to just double check that the forest management plan that James DeMaio wrote in 2025 satisfies this requirement. And he assured us that it did. So we should be set to apply for this funding essentially as soon as possible because it is a first come, first served basis. The application itself is pretty straightforward, so we can make it a quick turnaround once we hear some feedback from the Conservation Commission and we have some more conversations with Dan and Glenda about which ones we would like to pursue. At this time, funding is currently available for most of the practices we might be interested in. The ones listed here on this slide are where the funding is available right now. So there's funding available for harvest layout, legacy tree retention, invasive plant species control, best management practices, reseeding, and also practice plans. The practice plans is a requirement from this from the program where you have to write a practice plan, just showing what you plan to do for each of these practices. And those, I'll talk a little bit about the cost share for each of these practices as well. For the practice plans, there's a flat rate of $500 per plan. So for any of these practices that we apply for, we could get funding for, we get $500 of funding to write the plan to implement these practices. In terms of the practices themselves, harvest layout has a cost share of $1,440 for a property of 100 acres or more, which this is just over 100 acres. So that would be the cost share opportunity for the harvest layout. Legacy tree retention would be $300 per acre. Invasive species control, it depends on the severity of the invasive species infestation. On this property, it would vary from moderate to light, most likely. So moderate would be $543 per acre, and light would be $309 per acre. The BMPs, the cost share does depend on the specific BMP. I'll just talk about the reseeding for soil stabilization. The cost share for that, it ranges from $600 to $1,200 per acre. And there's also a temporary barriers to animal browse, which would be the deer fencing or tree tubes that Artem had mentioned earlier. The cost share for this would be up to $3,000 per acre, so good funding there. And then in addition to all these practices, there is a requirement through CSIP where everything needs to be monitored, which is done on a 12-month period. It's not done on an individual practice. You do it for any practice that you implemented within that 12-year time period. And I won't go into too much detail about the specific practices, but there are also other practices being rolled out in the future, which will include tree marking for commercial thinning, which we talked about. So it might be worth pursuing that in the future. And it also includes tree planting, which would be a good thing to pursue as well. The funding for tree marking and tree planting are both being rolled out this summer. So I think it would be a good idea to probably put in an application for the practices that are currently available, and then also submit an application for the practices that are being rolled out this summer. And then we just also wanted to mention really quick, next slide, Artem. There is also the EQIP program, which is another federally funded program, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. This allows owners of non-industrial private forest lands to receive financial assistance implementing many of these practices. Many of them are very similar to the CSIP program. We aren't going to go too into depth right now on it because we are in the process of confirming with the local NRCS office who runs the EQIP program that the town of Northborough is eligible to apply for this funding. At this point, it does look like CSIP will cover much of what we are looking to accomplish on the property, so that will continue to be our main focus. But this is another option that we are looking into for funding. And with that, I think we're ready for questions, feedback.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for listening to this.
Greg, I was looking around. I do think we need to explore the Community Preservation Fund. I was just kind of noodling around a little bit. It does look like it's something that is available. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but the towns are allowed to adopt this program, and because of that, through local taxes and state grants, we're going to get about, between 500 and 750,000 a year to spend on rec, agricultural, and open space projects. And this looks like it could benefit from those funds, but there's an application process through the town that's usually in November for the following fiscal year.
Okay.
Good to know. First I'm hearing about it. Let's put it that way.
Well, you said you were from New York, so.
Well, also this seems like it's much broader too and very municipal based.
Well, that's true. It is. It's within the Commonwealth, any town that adopts the program, and probably 2/3 of them have at this point. But there are some restrictions on the funds, but I would think this would be the kind of thing that we would be able to apply for.
Yep. Yep. All right, that's good. So Todd, we'll just hang as we get closer to November and think about putting the application in.
Yeah, I think the steps are going to be, didn't you say we have a new select board rep that was being appointed?
Supposedly being identified tonight.
Right. So I think the first thing we need to do is talk to that person.
Correct.
And kind of get their sort of buy-in on this, right?
Yes.
And then once we've done that, then I think that Glenda and I could do an application to the CPC. If there's if we have a proposal, because we don't know what this is going to cost, right? Can it be, some of the questions are, can it be broken up over a period of years? What other matching funds are there? The nice thing about this money is it's sort of outside of the town's operating budget. So we have to go to town meeting to get approval. But it doesn't, it gets, I don't want to say less scrutiny, but it's a different process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good. Good. Luke, you still with us?
Yep, I'm here.
Any ballpark figure what you think we might get for total CSIP funding? I mean, a lot of it's based on per acre. I'm not sure if that's per 100 acre or per 15 or a subset.
Yeah, so it depends on the practice that we would be implementing. Some of them are really straightforward, like the practice plans, for example, are really obvious. And I can send you a link so I'm not just so you have something to look at for the actual cost shares. But some of them are flat rates, like the practice plans that we have to write before implementation, which is $500 a plan.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the others are per acre basis. So for example, invasive plant species control.
Mm-hmm.
What we would want to do there is when we go back out to do our last walkthrough for the invasive plant species control plan would be to really well delineate where the worst of the invasive species are and determine how many acres we would actually have to be treating, and how bad the infestation is. Once we get that sorted out, we would know that if it's a moderate infestation, we would be eligible for $543 an acre for moderate infestations and $309 an acre for light infestations. So that's how the invasive plant species control is handled through the cost share. The legacy tree retention is pretty similar. That is also on a per acre basis. So it would just depend on how many acres we want to put in that practice. My recommendation would just be to probably put the entire property into that practice. So it would be $300 an acre times the 100, I think it's 105 acres total. So we could do that math. And then the harvest layout again is more of like a one-time thing. So that's just a flat rate depending on the acres of the property. So again, this one's over 100 acres. So that would be a flat rate of about $1,500.
Okay.
But it sounds like it would be helpful just to show you these numbers so you don't have to write them down or try to remember them.
Yeah, it's going to be a fairly large amount of dollars for the whole property, but it really does depend on what we're doing on in a certain area, basically, is what it comes down to. Specifically, ideally, the biggest cost that could be negated and potentially used to offset any further costs or maybe even add to the town budget is preferably getting rid of the trees as a harvest, like a timber sale, meaning that you should be getting compensated for the wood that's being taken out of off the property, basically, so that you're, I don't know how much that's going to bring in, but it's not going to be, it's not going to be hundreds of thousands, maybe, maybe 10, 20, 30,000, something like that. Presumably anyway. I mean, we haven't done any marking or anything else like that. So, so ideally a lot of the cost is going to be borne essentially by carrying out the harvest, and then the logger would also then implement some of the additional things as well, like the BMPs primarily, maybe seeding. Some of the other ones should be pretty good in terms of what they are providing. Like, for example, temporary barriers to animal browse. If you're at about, let's say, 10 to 15 acres that you're trying to fence off, that actually would be cost effective, like the $3,000 per acre. But if it's just 1 acre, then the cost is dramatically different just because the linear feet are going to be kind of a lot more on a smaller acreage basis as opposed to like 5, 10 acres. The linear feet are actually getting decreased as you increase the size of that circle. Presumably it's a circle.
But that was one of the questions I was going to ask, Arthur, is that the original thought behind this whole process was we'd get some money up front to do some of the planning, which we're doing, but then the majority would be received from all the wood that would be taken off the mountain and sold. So my question, I guess, is there any from UC? I mean, is that going to happen from your perspective? Do we have an undesirable amount of wood up there?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a harvest that could be done there, no question about it. Now, could be versus what the town, public, et cetera, will commit to or allow to happen is a whole different conversation.
Right. As we move down the road, will you guys choose the logger and manage he or she?
Presumably, especially if there's a certain amount of wood coming off the property, it would go through a bid process, a sealed bid process. So we'd be reaching out to multiple loggers and essentially trying to get the best price for the wood. If it's a smaller sale, we might have to try to figure something out as far as selecting a logger, but we would oversee it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
It does. Yes, it does. It does. Good. Okay. All right. Good. Dan.
Yes.
You got some comments there, right? You're gonna take a cut at the first piece you're thinking about, the background?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to I do think it's probably a little long for our audience, maybe a little too in-depth for them. So I have a bunch of ideas. I think the easiest thing for me to do is to make some edits, some written edits, and give them back to you, or well, share them with the group.
Absolutely.
On some thoughts that I have.
Okay.
And when are we doing this public? I don't know if we decided, right? When's this public presentation?
We've not decided that yet.
Yeah. Are we
Yeah, I mean, we
now?
certainly could cut it down, no question about it. Like I said, we weren't sure exactly what the scope or the purpose was of this particular presentation. So, figure shoot, take a shotgun approach, try to get as much as you can. I do think some of this is over the public's perception. So, for example, Luke's section maybe can get cut down maybe a lot. I don't know if they want to know the specifics of each particular section of the woods. I think some of the stuff that we want to keep in would be probably certainly like what you described, Dan, the stuff that like, why are we even doing this? Like, what's the point of all of this?
Yep.
I'm not sure exactly how I feel about completely cutting out that, like, trying to cram, 10 years of forest ecology into 10 minutes, or not even 10 minutes, I think it was like 2 minutes. But I do think we want to provide a little bit of that background, so that the lay folks are aware. And I think there's ways of doing that would maybe not necessarily decrease the presentation length on that end, but would be more, maybe even more like just more baseline rather than even slightly higher level. I spend a lot of time, on wildlife because I do think folks like wildlife, people like songbirds, but we could certainly cut it down, obviously, that purpose. And then trying to remember what else we had. I guess we could talk a little bit less about the actual management strategies because we spent a lot of time talking about, basically like even aged, uneven aged. We can maybe just kind of describe some of what it looks like, but not necessarily all of it. So,
well, Art, from my perspective here, and I'm certainly not an expert at all. The background about why was interesting, but when I saw here's what it means to Edmund Woods is when I really perked up, right? Because that's what I think that our audience is going to see is that's what does it mean to me? What's it mean to me walking the trails or going after bird watching or whatever? So it's important we have that first piece, but I think it's also you covered it. What does it mean to me?
The concern I have is that everybody's going to see, they're going to think, because we've heard some of this before, that we're doing this to fill the gaps in the municipal budget, right? We're cutting your conservation land to fill the money void, right? No, that's not why we're doing it. And you had some good slides in there as to why we would actually be doing this for conservation reasons.
Yep, very true. I'm not sure about the next meeting, Todd. Just some thoughts. I mean, we could try and do it in July. I also think we might want to have a separate meeting on this and advertise it and put it out there and have a separate meeting where it's for whether it's an hour and a half, whatever. That's the purpose, is to see what the town of Northborough Conservation Commission plan is for Edmund Hill.
Yeah, and have it like at the library, like maybe in person.
Yep. If these guys be willing to come in for it too, it's an idea.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe a longer format might be probably useful, especially for folks that maybe don't know enough about this, or just the general background. I think there is a real benefit to it. Of course, then you're going to be probably getting a lot of glassy eye stares from folks that are just not, they're like, what are you even talking about?
Sure.
I don't know. But you guys know your residents probably a lot better than I do.
We'll noodle that. Well, in terms of the presentation, I think we have a plan to go ahead and kind of work on that for Rev 1 between Dan and yourselves. And in terms of the approach of what we do, Dan, do you have any thoughts on whether it should be part of a Concom session or a separate meeting entirely?
I would separate it for sure. Yeah. I think you get better attendance, and I think you can then focus on that one specific topic. Yeah. And that's why people are there, is to learn about the proposed management.
Sure.
And after you've learned who our select board designee is, we may even want to talk to the full select board about this so they're not surprised by what we're doing.
Yep, exactly. Okay. John, any comments?
I had just a couple. One of the things I think we need to lean in on a little bit, a little bit more, is the invasive species plants, especially in the areas to make the public aware of how you're going to get rid of that material and what's going to happen to that material, whether it be by physical removal or by chemical. I think that needs to be called out. I think that's going to be of a strong interest. If it's going to be mechanical removal, how does that get disposed of, right? That was one of the things I think that needs to be emphasized a little bit that wasn't concentrated on here tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can definitely expand on that. I
Because
think I
Very good
kind
point.
of brushed over it in respect to time, but we can definitely go into more depth about the strategies that we're going to implement. At least we can at least talk about them broadly too, because we don't have a totally set plan at this point, but we can talk broadly the different management strategies for it.
right, because I think a lot of the folks that walk the Edmund Hill trails see those invasive species and they see them killing the trees, and I think they want to understand how that's going to get taken care of.
Yep.
The other item I kind of had here is the practice plans and procedure plans you put together, and there's a dollar value around those. And so, Luke and Artem, who draws up those practice plans? Who draws those up? Is it your team that does that?
Yep. That would be us.
Okay, and then who reviews that? Does that come back before the conservation team, or who reviews that?
So I think it's a requirement of the CSIP to have them. So it would go to the town, it would go to CSIP for them to approve it essentially, as well as to the logger or the person that's doing the implementation, which we can do some of the implementation, certainly invasive species management, marking, and so on. But probably any of the specifics as far as the harvest layout, et cetera, that would go to the logger.
Okay. The last item I had that I was taking notes of is the type of thinning or clear cutting that's done. Will you be demonstrating at some point to the public the amount of trees that will be removed and what that platform looks like after a tree removal? Will you be saying that we're doing this type of density focus? Kind of what's your plan there? A little bit about, what the before and after pictures look like and
Yeah,
describing that in a little
absolutely.
detail.
So Dan, and I'm sorry, what was the other
Greg,
forester? What
Greg
was it?
Buzzle. Greg Buzzle.
Greg, okay. Yeah, thank you. We went out to a site next to Wachusett Reservoir as well as a little bit of ways, but they're still owned by the Water Authority. Those folks have been carrying out this. So I think it would actually maybe make sense either to combine the public presentation with the field trip, although having said that, that might be a little bit much on a day basis for everybody who attends these things. So maybe we want to split it up into like a 2-day kind of an approach where we do a presentation one day and then a field visit the next day to kind of provide the general concept of what it looks like immediately after the harvest, and then several years out, 5-10 years out, so on. And there are really good examples of that on the reservoir property.
Good.
I'm sorry, but I did have one more. I'm sorry,
Sure.
Greg.
No.
The last item I had was time. In an area, and Greg had mentioned that we break this out from the different stands require different time folds. But just out of curiosity, out of some of these stands, some of them are roughly around the same size. Nothing's really one of the stands is much larger than the other. But just out of curiosity, out of these stands, what's the average of time the loggers are in this area performing the cutting?
Good question. It's at least somewhat dependent on the weather. I mean, I would think optimistically, depending, and the prescription as well for that matter, right? So optimistically, maybe a 3-month period, but I would say optimistic. You're probably looking at more 3 to 6 months. But
So-
that really is very dependent on the weather and then also the prescription we're actually doing.
I'm just concerned that because Edmund Hill Woods is surrounded by community, that these folks are going to hear this equipment for that extensive amount of time. And I think you probably want to be very upfront and transparent about that noise and what's involved there.
Right. Typically, it's actually kind of surprising at how sometimes it's not that intrusive. You can't hear. I mean, if you're walking by, I think the bigger issue is going to be actually managing traffic, pedestrian traffic in the forest. But I don't think the communities are going to be as aware of it as, certainly not in the center of the property. They won't be as aware of it. On the edges, they might be. So yeah, we should definitely have some sort of an anticipation of that. Typically, it is these guys don't work nights or weekends. For the most part, I have seen some that work nights, depending on how warm of a winter it is. But I'm not anticipating that to happen here.
Yeah, I'm just saying that a lot of these staging areas that I saw are around communities, and kind of maybe disagree a little bit, but with the equipment it's brought in to do the forestry work, I think it's quite large, and I think it will be a noise disruption.
It could be, no question. It could be. So we should make folks aware.
Yep.
We would be during working hours, so hopefully that offsets some of that.
Good. An interesting point, John. I hadn't thought about that, but there are some neighbors very close on that one side of Edmund Hill. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Good point. Okay. Glenda.
No, I'm all set. I just a little still unclear about the CSIP and you know, if the town would have to put the entire bill, and then I'm assuming it's a reimbursement grant. So if we could kind of get a better idea of like the numbers.
CSIP funding details.
Yeah, definitely. We can provide you, Glenda, if you maybe wanted to have like a separate conversation about the application itself, if you wanted to kind of go through which ones we're going to definitely be applying for and how many acres of each we're going to apply for and what that cost would be for each of them, like before we do any of the submission or anything. Because that was one question I had, is how soon we are looking to apply for this. Definitely the sooner the better, because it is first come, first serve.
I'd like to see those numbers before I have a conversation with the select board for sure.
Yep. Okay, definitely.
Yeah, we just want to know what we're getting into, if we're going to have to, like, you know, pay for the entire project cost and then be reimbursed, or how the funding is going to work. I think once we have a better idea of that, I think we could probably agree on, you know, moving forward with the grant application.
And I think they're probably not to get into the nitty gritty of it, Glenda and Greg, but I think maybe to break it down a little bit too into what segments of, you know, so much money gets into the invasive species. This amount of money gets put into, you know, the hardwoods. This amount of money gets put into, you know, the removal. I think people would be a little bit more understanding if it was a little bit more, I'll call that detailed per dollar.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think the application itself will, you know, once we kind of commit to what it is that we're willing to do, I think we'll get the dollar amounts very closely aligned from the application. And I think, you know, our estimates will be fairly close to that. So I think we'll have to kind of, you know, figure out the exact specifics on the implementation side. But outside of that, I think that they should be fairly close to what they're actually paying.
Yeah, and maybe not embedded into the, I'll call it the document, but that's probably going to need to be portrayed in some type of presentation. You know what I'm saying? Not just say it's in the doc, right? It's got to be put forward in front of the public.
Definitely. Yeah, if we have a conversation prior to doing this meeting, and I think July, you said, we would have a pretty good idea of the actual numbers prior to that meeting. So we could have some actual numbers for the public to look at a little bit more.
Okay.
And I think to answer Glenda's question, it is a reimbursement program. So it would be, funds would have to be provided up front and then reimbursed. You have to submit like different reimbursement forms, just documenting what was done.
Yeah.
That would include like itemized contractor invoices and photos, etc.
Right.
That's always fun.
Yep.
And that fact makes it even more important that we get some numbers here if it's a reimbursement program.
Absolutely.
And CSIP, I presume it's federal funding or state funding?
That's federal funding.
CSIP?
Yeah.
No,
I think
that's pretty sure that's state.
It's being implemented by the state, but the actual monies, I believe, is
Okay.
federal.
Maybe I'm thinking about the community woodland grant because I think I remember having this conversation. So maybe I'm confused. Okay.
Yeah, the community woodland grant is the state one. I believe this is federally funded.
Okay.
So federally funded, state manages the money.
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, I think I'm good. A lot of stuff noodle on here. I'm not sure when we'd have we're running into a summer season now too, which is kind of a problem in terms of getting attendance, and the select board goes on some vacation, so we might be looking at September for that pitch. But I'm not sure that the timing is as important as getting our ducks all together first before we expose it.
So let me ask this question. Do you think it would make sense to do a kind of a real brief presentation about this with the select board, and then also incorporate more of the financial side of this into it before the September timeframe? Because at that point, we're essentially getting buy-in from the public, my understanding, but we need to get buy-in from the local leadership as well.
Right. And I think we'd like to get that first.
Right. Which, yeah, that absolutely makes sense, right? Do you think it would make sense for us to really condense this whole presentation and focus more on the financial side of it? And I guess how would we do that also would be fairly helpful to us.
Well, I would think that, yes, for the select board, you want a condensed presentation, but you definitely want to have a lot of the financials fully blown out. Todd, would you agree with that or not?
Long time to unmute to say yes, absolutely.
I hard time with that button tonight. Yes. Okay. All right. Good. So I think you guys got off. Be working with Dan, trying to maybe make some changes to it. I think that the select board might want a shorter presentation, but we'll have to wait and see on that. I think the first step is see who's going to be representing us and have the conversation with them, and then see where that leads. Which we'll do in concert simultaneously with what you guys are doing with the actual pitch.
Okay.
All right. Anybody have any final questions here? I mean, it's our last item of the agenda tonight. Dan, you're good?
Yeah, I'll start working on some suggested edits.
Okay. Todd, you're good. So we know where you're coming from. John?
I have nothing further.
Okay. Glenda?
Yeah.
Yo, yeah, they were good. Hey guys, thanks a lot for coming in and doing that. It's a lot of work involved in that. 65 pages flew by like it was only 65 pages, but it was pretty good. It was really good. It really was. Good job. Thank you.
Yeah, nice job, you guys. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Yes.
We'll get there.
Glenda, are we
Appreciate
paying
it.
them okay? Are we current with them, by the way?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. All right.
Good.
Any last comments here? We need anything else? How about July? July meeting. Anybody have an issue with July at this point in time? Stuff comes up, I know, but so July looks okay. That's July 13. All right. Then we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second it.
Dan Clark,
Yes.
Todd Hellweek,
Yes.
John Johnson.
Yes.
I say yes. Thank you, Amro.
Yep. Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
guys.
And talk to you
Thank
soon.
you.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you, Dana, for your support.
Night, folks.